Chapter 1306. Only now did she understand that Wu Mo was her inner demon obsession. That day she had decisively stabbed his heart. If Long Chuan hadn't risked his life to save him, his body would have died in the chaos. If he wanted to come back to life, his primordial spirit would need to cultivate for another 1,000 years. In order to save him, Long Chuan had used all of his blood essence and burned the Qilin's soul to refine a Qilin pill that could bring the dead back to life. It replaced his heart and allowed him to live again. However, Long Chuan's soul had scattered because of this. Wu Mo was the inner demon that he had refined when he was in despair. He had sealed all of his memories on Wu Mo and then fell into a deep sleep. Because of this, he had the problem of falling into a deep sleep every 1,000 years. Once he fell into a deep sleep, he would forget everything that had happened in the past. No matter how many grievances he had, he could throw them away with his deep sleep. Now that Wu Mo was dead, the memories that were sealed in his body automatically returned to Xinjiuli's body. Before Wu Mo died, he did something. The conversation between him and Ning Xuema was also received by Xinjiuli. Xinjiuli's aura became colder and colder. Even the clouds in the sky seemed to feel his mood. They pressed down and layers of dark clouds densely covered the sky. The wind on the mountain top was as cold as a knife. The snowflakes swirled along with the cold wind. When the snowflakes hit people's bodies, they would feel a burning pain and a bone-chilling cold. It was the pressure of a god. Ning Xuema was pressed down by him to the point she almost couldn't breathe. He was the one who started it. 10 years ago he had plotted against me once and almost killed me. Now he wants to harm me a second time. He wanted to kill me. I was just defending myself. Besides, I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted to cripple his martial arts. Who would have thought that he would squat down and automatically send his weak point to my sword? Ning Xuema suppressed the disappointment and anger in her heart and quickly explained the reason. Xinjiuli had been closing his eyes. Now he slowly opened them. His pair of icy blue eyes shot at Ning Xuema. It was deeper and colder than the dark night. Ning Xuema felt a chill in her heart under his gaze. She couldn't say anything else. Shui Yimo, I didn't think that I would be defeated by you twice. However, do you think you can succeed this time? Xinjiuli spoke word by word. His voice was as cold as ice, almost freezing Ning Xuema's heart. He called her Shui Yimo. Could it be that he had recovered his memories from his past life? You. Ning Xuema was about to refute when Xinjiuli flicked his sleeve. Ning Xuema's acupoints were sealed. Not only could she not move, but she could not even speak. She stared at him in disbelief and her lips turned pale. Shui Yimo, you will pay the price for your actions. Xinjiuli coldly threw out these words. With another flick of his sleeve, Ning Xuema felt her vision darken, and her body weakly collapsed. Xinjiuli looked at the unconscious Ning Xuema, a complicated look flashing through his icy eyes. With a slight movement of his fingers, a strong wind carried Ning Xuema away. Cold, so cold. In the darkness, Ning Xuema only felt a bone-piercing chill seeping into her bones. It was so cold that she couldn't help but curl up into a ball. She slowly opened her eyes. It was as if she was in the Ice Age. Wherever her gaze landed, there was a piece of sparkling and translucent ice. The cold wind was bitterly cold, and the wind was so strong that it almost flipped her over. The wind was mixed with frozen snow, causing her face to hurt. Ning Xuema was caught off guard and was cut several times on her body. Chapter 1307. Blood slowly flowed out and then turned into bright red ice. Ning Xuema subconsciously wanted to use the fire psychokinesis in her body to warm herself up, but she found that her psychokinesis was circulating very slowly as if it was sealed. This little bit of psychokinesis was only enough to warm her hands and feet. Previously, when she fought with Wu Mo, she suffered a lot of injuries. Xinjiuli's thunder-like palm directly shook her to the point of vomiting blood. Now, her psychokinesis was sealed and she was thrown into this extremely cold place. It was summer and she was wearing a light pink gauze dress. Now, when the wind blew, it was bone-chilling. If she hadn't cultivated to Earth rank level 8, she was afraid that she would be frozen into an ice sculpture in less than a quarter of an hour. Even now, her limbs were frozen stiff and in pain. She couldn't sit here, otherwise her limbs would be frozen to the point of being crippled. She had to get up and move around. Ning Xuema clenched her teeth and stood up, but her legs suddenly became sore and numb. She fell to the ground and her elbow was scratched again. She sat on the ice and her heart was cold. Was Xinjiuli planning to freeze her to death? Just because she killed Wu Mo, Xinjiuli wanted her to be buried with him. Ning Xuema's chest was filled with anger, but her heart was gradually becoming cold, as if she had fallen into an ice hell. She really didn't expect that after he raped her, he would give her such an answer. His palm made her vomit blood, and then he simply exiled her to such a broken place. Wu Emo was seeking his own death, but what did it have to do with her? Even if she really killed him, it was a reasonable revenge. 10 years ago, Wu Emo didn't leave her with a way to live at all. She placed her fingers on her chest. Although the wound there had already healed and did not leave any scars under her treatment, it was still a place where she had been injured before. The excessive cold had caused her to feel pain there first, and it was very painful. When her life was hanging by a thread and she was being chased by Wu Emo, where was Xinjiuli? Where was he? When she was dealing with Shui Yilan in the Demon Palace, where was he? Why should she be treated like this? And from the looks of it, his memories of Shui Yimo had also recovered. But hadn't he already taken his revenge in his previous life? His vengeance was so ruthless that it wasn't inferior to Shui Yimo's heart-piercing sword. After recovering Shui Yimo's memories, she didn't want to bicker about it anymore, because she felt that the previous life was the previous life. In this life, she couldn't be tied down by the grudges of the previous life. She loved him wholeheartedly and waited bitterly for him for 10 years. What about him? What right did he have to be so calculative? He belonged to Cao Cao. Only he was allowed to betray the world, but others were not allowed to betray him. Why? Why should she be treated like this? No, she had to get out. She wanted to ask him clearly. She didn't want to suffer from this vexation. Ning Xuema stood up shakily and walked a few steps forward, but she was bounced back. She was stunned for a moment and raised her hand. As expected, she touched the barrier. She did not give up and walked in all 4 directions, only to find that she would be bounced back. The wizardry barrier in this place was like a 4-sided wall, trapping her in the middle. There was no way for her to escape. Could this be the purgatory of ice? Xinjiuli threw her into the purgatory of ice to fend for herself? Was it also to avenge Wu Emo? After all, Wu Mo's punishment was to be locked in the purgatory of ice for a year, and now Xinjiuli wanted her to have a taste of this? Was it to seek justice for Wu Emo? Justice. To hell with justice. Chapter 1308. If he was really fair, he wouldn't treat her like this. It turned out that the current her in his heart was far less important than a substitute. When he was forcing himself on her, she mistakenly thought that he had fallen in love with her again. She was so wrong. She suddenly felt something sweet in her throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. That blood quickly condensed into a block of ice, which looked especially sparkling and translucent under the sunlight. Ning Xuema stared blankly at that block of blood ice. Suddenly she remembered Xinjiuli's emotionless eyes and his cold tone. Shui Yimo, you will pay the price for your actions. She suddenly laughed out loud. Ridiculous. Ning Xuema was really ridiculous. Pay the price for her actions? What the hell did she do that needed to pay such a big price? She loved him with all her might, crazily missed him, desperately suppressed her inner demons, and worked hard to cultivate. What about him? Forgetting her, hurting her, teaching her a lesson, seriously injuring her. Now he was making her pay the price. Right now she had indeed paid the price. She had suffered a crushing defeat, a true crushing defeat. Shui Yimo. She was Ning Xuema. Why did she have to shoulder Shui Yimo's debt? Besides, in her previous life, although Shui Yimo had given Xinjiuli a stab, didn't Xinjiuli also join forces with Shui Yimo to kill her? They were already even. Now, why did he act as if she owed him? Countless chaotic thoughts rolled around in her mind, clamoring. Ning Xuema laughed out loud and spat out a mouthful of blood, which sprayed onto the ground. Tianyin Peak, Main Hall. Xinjiuli was minding his own business, playing chess. However, the time he spent in a trance was obviously longer than the time he spent playing chess. He had already recovered the memories of his previous life. However, he had only recovered the memories of his first life. After that, his memories were still blank. Shui Yimo had killed him in his previous life. In this life, she had approached him with ulterior motives. Every word she had said to Wu Yimo during their confrontation had been heard by him. In this life, she wanted to take his life? You're still here as a spy? Xinjiuli had actually fallen for her in both lifetimes. In Xinjiuli's mind, the smiling face that he loved and hated at the same time appeared in his mind. The calmness in his heart was finally broken, and many complicated emotions surged in his heart. His fingers clenched the chess piece so tightly that his fingertips turned white. After a while, he raised his hand and poured himself a cup of fragrant tea. He took a light sip and frowned slightly. The tea was hot, but he had forgotten to cool it down. The tip of his tongue was burning, and his heart was burning with annoyance. How would she react when he sealed her psychokinesis and threw her into the ice purgatory? Yilu Jing, and said she hadn't eaten anything these past few days. Every day, other than being absent-minded, she was still absent-minded. When he heard about it, his heart clenched. Only then did he return. However, he didn't expect to see her arrogantly killing Wu Emo the moment he returned. Who gave her the guts? Was she really relying on his feelings for her to do whatever she wanted in the Sun Moon sect? Bang! One of the chess pieces in Shinjiuli's hand shattered, turning into powder and falling to the ground. He lowered his eyes and sat for a while. Light gathered in his hand, and a water ball slowly formed. With a flick of his sleeve, the water ball flew into the air and turned into a mirror. Shinjiuli waved his hand, and the mirror gradually distorted into a whirlpool. After that, it became clear again. In the mirror was a silvery white world. Thus he saw Ning Xuema. Chapter 1309. A pink-clothed girl was sitting there quietly, hugging her knees. Her long black hair covered her pretty face, so he couldn't see her expression. There were specks of blood on the snow around her, which had all condensed into pieces of red ice crystals. The wounds on the girl's body were hideous and bloody, but she didn't care. Looking at the shocking bloodstains, Shinjiuli held his breath, and his hands involuntarily clenched. The pink-clothed girl stood up shakily, her long hair parted like a curtain, revealing a pale little face. There were specks of blood on the corners of her mouth. She walked forward but was bounced back by the enchantment. She seemed to be stunned for a moment. Unwilling to give up, she walked in all directions. Undoubtedly, she was bounced back and fell heavily to the ground. The pink-clothed girl sat on the ground for a while, and then suddenly laughed. Her laughter was full of despair and sarcasm, echoing in the empty purgatory of ice. Shinjiuli's hands tightened and the teacup in his hand made a groaning sound, but he turned a deaf ear and just looked at the picture in the water mirror. The pink-clothed girl suddenly spat out a big mouthful of blood while laughing, splashing on the ground. Her pink dress was gradually soaked in blood, but she didn't seem to feel it. She kept coughing up blood but she was still laughing. Her lips were full of blood, and her clothes had been dyed red. She laughed and fell to the ground. The teacup in Shinjiuli's hand shattered with a ping sound, and the broken pieces cut a wound on his hand. Blood kept rolling down, and the tea splashed all over him. He didn't have any reaction and still looked at the picture in the water mirror stiffly. The pink-clothed girl's laughter finally stopped. She slowly curled up into a ball, motionless as if she was frozen. Shinjiuli waved his hand, and the water mirror suddenly scattered. He sat there quietly, the tea rolling down his robe, but he didn't have any reaction. He just sat there for a long time without moving, as if he had become a sculpture. The afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled on his body, giving him a layer of fiery golden light. His figure was tall and straight in the light, but it was full of loneliness and bleakness. After a long time he finally got up, flicked his sleeves and left. Ning Xuema lay prone in the ice for a long time. The bone-chilling wind blew from all directions. She was trapped here with nowhere to run. His body felt hot and cold at the same time. His head also felt dizzy and he was seeing double. If this continued, she would die here. The last bit of reason in her mind told her that she should be meditating and recuperating instead of letting herself freeze like this. However, she didn't want to move at all. She just wanted to sit there quietly. It was almost as if she was torturing herself. She exposed herself to the cold wind and let the temperature in her body drop by drop. Her vision became darker and darker, and the sun also split into two. She tried her best to open her eyes, but the darkness surged like a tide, and she finally fainted. Before she fainted, she mocked herself. Ning Xuema, are you counting on Shinjiuli to pity you? Her lips curled into a sarcastic smile as she closed her eyes. What greeted her was a long darkness. After being unconscious for a long time, Ning Xuema finally woke up. She was still the only one in the vast ice field. The cold wind whistled and swirled around her, as if it wanted to take away everything that had heat. Ning Xuema lay on the ice, silently looking at the cold moon in the sky. Chapter 1310. Her clothes fluttered in the cold wind, and she could no longer feel any heat from her body. The cold air from the ice entered her body and her hands and feet were numb from the cold. But she just laid there motionless. The cold moon was covered in frost and the cold moonlight flowed over her body. The ice purgatory was even colder in the dark night, almost freezing people from the inside out. Under the moonlight, her face was as white as snow and the blood on her clothes had frozen into ice crystals. They were hard and emitted a hazy light under the moonlight. There was no trace of blood on her cherry blossom-like lips, and her eyes that were always as bright as stars were dark without a trace of light. It was as if even the most dazzling light was swallowed by the darkness and couldn't enter her eyes. She quietly laid there for the entire night. She had never thought that she would have a time like this. Lying alone on the ice field, watching the morning sun tear through the darkness and slowly rise through the cracks. A ray of sunlight fell on her body and onto her pale face. Her body was gradually covered in a layer of golden light. Her entire body was dazzling on the ice, like a shining angel. But in her eyes, there was a coldness that couldn't be compared to last night's cold moon. The sunlight became stronger and stronger, but Ning Xuema couldn't feel a trace of warmth. The cold air had already entered her body like she was terminally ill. Now that the sunlight had arrived late, it didn't have the slightest effect. Ning Xuema looked at the clouds in the sky for a long time before finally closing her eyes. Ever since she transmigrated, she had always strived to survive. No matter how difficult it was, she had never felt despair. But now her heart was filled with despair. Pang! Another teacup broke. Yilu Jing, and didn't know how many times he had cleaned up the broken teacups these past few days. He looked at the ancestor's increasingly gloomy expression and an ominous feeling flashed through his heart. But there were some things he didn't dare to ask and couldn't ask. So after he respectfully cleaned up the broken teacups, he silently left. Xinjiuli's expression became worse and colder. At the same time, the anger in his heart became stronger and stronger. When he sealed her spiritual force, he didn't use too much force. As long as she put in a bit of effort, she could break it open and meditate to resist the cold. But she didn't do anything and just laid there on the ice. What was she doing? Was he seeking death? Looking at her body buried in the snow, his heart couldn't help but clench into a ball. When Ning Xuema woke up again, it was night again. However, this time the night was completely dark. The cold moon from last night was nowhere to be seen. She had given up on herself for 2 days, and her body was almost stiff. Ning Xuema's heart finally calmed down. There were no more waves in her heart. She only felt tired, extremely tired. It didn't seem like a bad idea to just rest here forever. For the past 2 days, she had been lying motionless on the ground. The snow had almost buried her, leaving only her pale and bloodless face exposed. Ning Xuema made up her mind to sleep forever. Perhaps she would be able to go back to her own world when she really couldn't wake up. She would no longer care about this world. So after looking at the sky for a while, she fell asleep again. This time she had a dream. In the dream it was a distant past life. It was that unruly and unrestrained secret agent boss Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema stood quietly to the side. Looking at her majestic and confident past life, she suddenly felt a sense of absent-mindedness in her heart. It had only been 10 years, but Ning Xuema felt that she had aged a lot. Chapter 13:11. Looking at herself at that time, she only felt that she was young and frivolous. How did she end up like this? Why did she become like this? Even Ning Xuema was disgusted with herself? Perhaps everyone in the world had to face a tribulation. If they passed, they would live. If they didn't, they would die. Xinjiuli was the biggest tribulation in her life. If she could get through this, she wanted to fly far away. From then on, she would be far away from him to the ends of the earth, and they would never cross paths again. If she couldn't pass it, she would be buried under the snow. From then on, she would have nothing to do with this world and would sleep forever. On the 3rd day, Ning Xuema finally sat up and meditated quietly. She thought that she must break through this ice purgatory and sever her relationship with Xinjiuli. Then she would leave and never come back. The psychokinesis that had been stagnant for 3 days began to circulate and break through the frozen blood vessels. This process was like thousands of ants gnawing at her heart. It was very painful. Ning Xuema bit her lower lip hard to prevent herself from making a sound. She was already pitiful enough. If she cried out, wouldn't she be even more pitiful? Ning Xuema did not need to be pitied. The more painful it was, the more she accelerated her psychokinesis to make herself feel more pain. Ning Xuema fell into a masochistic pleasure. She was in so much pain that she almost fainted. However, she tried to stay awake. There was only one thought in her mind. Ning Xuema, this is the price you have to pay for falling in love with Xinjiuli. The price you have to pay for falling in love with a god. The more painful it was, the more awake she was. Cold sweat broke out all over her body. Her clothes were soon soaked. When the cold wind blew, her clothes froze again. They stuck tightly to her skin and almost froze her whole body. She circulated her energy for a day and a night and finally unblocked all the frozen blood vessels. Her psychokinesis was active again. However, she was in too much pain. As soon as she stopped circulating her energy, all the pain came up. She was in so much pain that she rolled on the ground. Cold sweat kept flowing down. Her vision was blurry and dark. Her muscles were twitching unconsciously. Finally, she fainted from the pain. Shinjuli looked at the unconscious pink-dressed girl in the mirror, and his hands slowly tightened. She had been unconscious for a day and a night. Even when she was unconscious, her muscles would often twitch unconsciously. Then she would tighten into a ball, like a baby in its mother's womb, tightly protecting herself and isolating herself from the outside world. The pain of forcefully opening one's blood vessels was not something that an ordinary person could endure. However, not only did she endure it, she did not even make a sound. Even though she was rolling on the ground in pain, she didn't make a sound. The girl's body in the mirror suddenly emitted a golden light, which gradually grew stronger. Shinjuli's expression changed and he stood there stiffly. A moment later, his figure flashed and like a bolt of white lightning, he suddenly rushed out. Ning Xuema was woken up by the sharp pain. She felt like she was about to explode. Psychokinesis was running wildly in her body, constantly expanding and suppressing her blood vessels. Was he possessed by the devil? Ning Xuema was in so much pain that her face was pale. She wanted to shout and roll on the ground, but it was as if she was fixed in place and could not move. She could only watch her inner world collapse bit by bit and fall apart. She had never experienced such intense pain. It was even worse than the time when Yi Qingwan used the soul-beating whip to scatter her soul. Ning Xuema did not know what was wrong with her. She watched as her skin cracked inch by inch. It was transparent and emitted a dazzling golden light from the cracks. It felt like a porcelain jar that was cracked all over. Chapter 13:12. She felt like she was a porcelain jar that was cracked all over. The countless cracks on her body shot out rays of golden light, and the golden light was gradually expanding. The psychokinesis ran amok in her body. Her blood vessels were broken into pieces by the psychokinesis, and her internal organs were also cracking. The psychokinesis ran amok in her body. Her heart and lungs were like a hornet's nest, and there were holes everywhere. The overwhelming pain made her want to faint, but she couldn't. She could only endure the heaven-defying pain. She tried to control the psychokinesis that was running amok in her body, but she could not control it at all. The moment she tried to control it, it ran amok even more. Cold sweat kept flowing down her body, and her clothes were soaked in an instant. It even melted the snow under her body. Ning Xuema felt that she was going to die this time, and her soul was going to scatter. Half of her body was already transparent. When the sun came out, would she turn into ashes? The golden light grew bigger and bigger, and Ning Xuema's entire body was covered by the golden light. The moment the sun came out, Ning Xuema's body suddenly exploded with a bang. Countless rays of golden light flew out, and she scattered into countless rays of light. The sun finally tore through the darkness and shone on the earth. The cold wind blew past, and the broken pieces of pink yarn fell down, as if there was a romantic cherry blossom rain. The cold wind whistled in the empty ice purgatory for tens of thousands of years, and the rays of light in the sky were blown away. Suddenly, a man in white appeared out of thin air. He looked at the rays of light in the sky and his fingers trembled slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, the rays of light seemed to have received some kind of order, and flew towards a direction. The rays of light in the sky kept condensing in the air under a strong control. The rays of light seemed to be unwilling to be condensed, and kept trying to disperse, wanting to disappear from this world. The man in white's fingertips turned slightly white. She had no desire to live. His lips moved and he did not dare to be slow. He kept drawing and countless charms were drawn, forcing the rays of light to condense together inch by inch. Slowly, a young girl was formed in the golden light. She had snow-white skin, long black hair and delicate eyebrows. Her eyes were slightly closed and she was sleeping peacefully. The golden light gently enveloped the girl and placed her on the ground. Shinjuli looked at Ning Xuema, who was becoming more and more beautiful, with a complicated look in his eyes. He reached out his finger as if he wanted to caress her eyebrows, but he slowly put his hand down. He lowered his eyes and looked at her. After an unknown amount of time he finally turned and left. The 5th day. When Ning Xuema woke up, she felt that the psychokinesis in her body had stabilized and was flowing vigorously. If her psychokinesis was compared to the vast Yangtze River in the past, it was now a vast ocean. She felt as if she had limitless telekinesis. She actually advanced at this time. Ning Xuema didn't know whether she should be happy or sad. She looked at her own graceful body and couldn't help but curl up into a ball. Looking at the countless pieces of pink gauze scattered around her, her eyes moved. With a slight clench of her hand, the pink gauze flew into the air and quickly assembled into her gauze dress. Ning Xuema put on the gauze dress and felt a lot more at ease. She stood up, and as she walked, countless rays of light scattered. Ning Xuema laughed mockingly. Was this the pretentious system that came with the 9th level? Chapter 13:13. However, no matter how beautiful she was trapped here and no one could appreciate her beauty. Ning Xuema silently recited a spell, and the flowing lights finally disappeared. She slowly walked to the side of the barrier. After thinking carefully, she drew a talisman in the air and slapped it on the barrier. The barrier only shook a little but it didn't move. She tried several methods in succession, from sunrise to sunset, and from sunset to sunrise. She used all the methods she knew. The barrier was firmly erected there, imprisoning her freedom and her heart. Even though she was already at Earth rank level 9, she would still be trapped here until she died. The most frightening thing was that she had a lifespan of thousands of years. This meant that if Xinjuli was ruthless, she might be imprisoned here for thousands of years. She had tried every means to escape from Shui Yilan and return to his side. So, this was the result. Shui Yilan had put her under house arrest, and Xinjuli had simply locked her in an ice house to fend for herself. Perhaps when he thought of her again, she would already be a pile of bones here. Xinjuli, you're really ruthless. Xinjuli, I regret knowing you. How could you treat me like this? I waited bitterly for you for 10 years and this is your reward? If she continued to be so quiet, was he planning to lock her up until the end of time? She suddenly slapped her palm on the barrier. Xinjuli, let me out. I'll let go and let you and Yunxi be together. Let me out. There was only the biting cold wind around her, and no one answered her. Xinjuli, let me go. From now on we'll be far apart. I swear I'll never appear in front of you again. Let me go. She shouted again and again until her voice was hoarse. She slapped the barrier again and again, and the skin on her tender hands was broken and dripping with blood. Xinjuli sat at the top of the white pagoda on the Tianin Peak. The clouds in front of him spread out like a mirror, and Ning Xuema's figure was reflected in the mirror. He looked at her shouting those words and his fingers clenched again. The mountains are high and the rivers are far away and we will never meet again? She had spent so much effort to come to his side, but she had to give up before she achieved her goal? Let him and Yunxi be together? There was nothing between him and Yunxi. At most they were just good friends. Was there a need for her to help him? His gaze paused on her bleeding palm and he suddenly exhaled. With a wave of his sleeve, the cloud mirror disappeared and returned to the white clouds. He lowered his eyes and meditated again, but his heart was still uneasy. After venting for a while, Ning Xuema finally gave up. The corners of his lips curled up in a mocking smile. Perhaps he already wished that he was dead. Naturally, he wouldn't let her go. Even now, she still couldn't give up on that ridiculous and foolish thought that he would be soft-hearted towards her. Ning Xuema, he was no longer the great god who treated her so well. He was a high and mighty god. She was probably just a pet in his eyes. When he was happy, he would stroke her fur and tease her. When he was unhappy, he would simply throw her out to fend for herself. The various thoughts in her mind were too tangled, so she simply stopped thinking about them. When she was in danger, she had a great god to rely on. When this great god brought her the greatest calamity, who else could she rely on? She could only rely on herself. She finally sat down to cultivate. If she broke through a few more levels, perhaps she would be able to break this barrier. Chapter 13:14. Her psyche power began to circulate, and her body became warmer and warmer. There was a faint golden enchantment around her, which blocked a lot of wind and snow for her. On the 6th day, Ning Xuema stood up and habitually tried to break the enchantment, but she still couldn't break it. She had been disappointed again and again. She had been disappointed so much that she didn't feel anything anymore. She was about to go back and continue practicing when she suddenly found that there was another person in front of her. It was still the same wide white robe that fluttered in the wind. His face was as handsome as a god's, and his icy blue eyes looked at her quietly. Seeing her turn around, a complicated look flashed through his calm eyes. The moment Ning Xuema saw Xinjuli, her body stiffened, and she took a step back reflexively. Her emotions were in a mess now. Joy, anger, disappointment, grievance, and hatred all came together and almost buried her. On the first day she was full of grief and anger. If Xinjuli had come at that time, she would have shouted at him and vented her anger on him. She would only feel grievance and resentment, but she wouldn't hate him. On the second day she was in a self-inflicted coma. Although she tried to say that the more pain she felt, the more awake she would be. But in her heart, she secretly hoped that he would come in and see her. Now, after so many days of coldness and pain, she didn't want to say a word to him anymore. Shinjuli had thought of her countless reactions. She would throw herself into his arms or kill him with a sword. But he didn't think that her first reaction would be to retreat when she saw him. Shinjuli's heart tightened and there was a pain spreading in it. The two of them were silent for a long time. They weren't standing very far away, and they could touch each other in a few steps. But in reality they were separated by thousands of miles. Ning Xuema's eyes were indifferent and emotionless. Finally Ning Xuema broke the deadlock. She looked at Shinjuli calmly. "Are you here to let me go?" Shinjuli didn't say anything. His eyes were so cold that no warmth could be seen. Ning Xuema made up her mind and said, "Shinjuli, let me go. You and I will never cross paths again. I promise that I will never bother you again. In the future we will have nothing to do with each other. Green mountains and clear waters, let's not meet again." Shinjuli remained silent, but the aura around him became even colder. His thin lips were pressed tighter and tighter. Ning Xuema was stunned. She raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "You don't really want to take me as your concubine again, do you? Why don't you marry Yunshi?" "It has nothing to do with Yunshi. I will not take you as my concubine." Shinjuli finally opened his mouth. Strange, he didn't release her, nor did he force her to become his concubine. Then what was his purpose in coming here this time? Ning Xuema's heart sank. She looked at him with a sharp gaze. "It's not this and it's not that. You can't be here to kill me, right?" Shinjuli's body stiffened. He didn't say anything. Was he really here to kill her? He was surprised to see that she had survived inside, so he wanted to add fuel to the fire? Ning Xuema suddenly felt like laughing. There were countless people in this world who wanted her dead. She didn't expect that he was one of them. She, Ning Xuema, had loved him wholeheartedly. She thought that she had already given him everything she could. Now he said that it wasn't enough and that there was still her life. Since he wanted her life now, it didn't matter if she gave it to him. She had lived long enough. If she could die in his hands, she would give up completely. She wouldn't have to suffer like this anymore. She opened her arms in a defenseless posture. "Come on, avenge your Wuma. I won't fight back." Chapter 13:15. Even if she fought back, she wouldn't be able to defeat him, so why should she do such a useless thing? She just didn't know what method he would use to kill her. Right now, she had the psychokinesis of an Earth rank level 9. It could be said that she was at the same level as the 1,000-year-old fox spirit Sudaji. She wouldn't die so easily. Shinjuli took a step forward. His icy blue eyes were emotionless, like the coldest and most austere deep sea. With just a glance, she felt an endless chill. Ning Xuema watched him slowly approach, her heart uncontrollably aching. She still couldn't do it. She couldn't keep her heart as still as water as she watched the person she once loved kill her with his own hands. But so what if she couldn't do it? Resist? Too lazy. So tiring. Falling in love was so tiring. It had practically exhausted all of her heart's blood. She suddenly fixed her gaze on Shinjuli, her dark eyes unreadable. "Before I die, can I make one last request?" Shinjuli's footsteps paused. His hands clenched, and his tone had a trace of fluctuation. "What?" Ning Xuema closed her eyes, her voice without the slightest trace of emotion. "If you want to kill me, then kill me thoroughly. It's best if my soul scatters. I don't want to reincarnate." Living was too tiring, reincarnating was also too tiring. If she accidentally fell in love with him after reincarnating, that would be even more tiring. Right now, she only wanted to fall into a long and unconscious sleep, never to wake up again. Shinjuli's body stiffened and he paused there. After a long while, his hands slowly wrapped around her delicate neck. "Shui Yamo, if I kill you, will you be sad?" How could she not be sad? He hadn't done anything yet, but she was already so distressed that she wanted to dig her heart out. If he did, Ning Xuema let out a low laugh. Shinjuli's actions had always been fast, accurate, and ruthless. She might not even have the time to feel pain before she completely lost consciousness. This was also good. Ning Xuema opened her eyes and looked at the handsome face in front of her. She smiled and stared into his icy blue eyes, pausing between each word. "I'm not sad. Because I never loved you. No matter if it was the previous life or this life." Her heart was throbbing with pain, but she insisted on finishing her sentence as if she was torturing herself. Shinjuli's body suddenly stiffened, and the hand around her neck tightened. There seemed to be a touch of pain in his icy blue eyes. But Ning Xuema didn't care anymore. She closed her eyes again and said indifferently, "Do it." The force on her neck grew stronger and stronger. Ning Xuema felt her vision darken. She was losing oxygen bit by bit. Her pretty face was flushed red, but as she said, she didn't resist at all. The force on her neck suddenly disappeared, and a large amount of oxygen was sucked in. Ning Xuema choked and coughed. Shen Jiuli's icy eyes were hard to decipher. Seeing her raise her head to look at him, he sighed. With a flick of his sleeve, Ning Xuema's vision went black and she fell limply into his arms. "Shui Yimo, this seat really wants to strangle you to death like this." His voice rang softly by her ear. When Ning Xuema woke up, she found herself lying on a soft bed. Her neck still hurt a little. She wanted to raise her hand to rub it, but found that she had been fixed in place. Shen Jiuli's back was facing her. His tall and straight figure stood quietly in front of a huge cauldron. Gurgle, gurgle, there was a raging fire burning under the cauldron. The heart of the fire was a rich purple. It was the three true fire that could burn everything. Something was placed inside the cauldron. It was bubbling and at the same time, emitting a rich medicinal fragrance. It floated and wandered in the air. Chapter 13:16. The entire room was filled with smoke, but the strange thing was that the smoke was not choking. Instead, it made people feel refreshed and invigorated. This was the alchemy room? As if he had expected her to wake up, Shinjuli turned around and lightly said, "You're awake?" The flickering flames gave him a layer of fiery golden light, but his eyes were as cold as the deepest sea and the darkest night. Ning Xuema looked at his ice-blue eyes and her heart filled with an ominous feeling. Why did he bring her into the alchemy room? Was he feeding her medicine? Impossible, he really did not hold back when he strangled her. He wanted to kill her right now, so why would he treat her? Ning Xuema looked at him with vigilance and did not say a word. Shinjuli walked over step by step and looked down at her. His eyes were filled with complex emotions. With a gentle wave of his sleeve, Ning Xuema's pink dress was torn apart again. Was he trying to force himself on her? He had already forced himself on her once, did he want to do it a second time? Ning Xuema's charming face turned black and she coldly said, "Shinjuli, don't make me look down on you." Her voice was still a bit rough. It was probably because he had used too much strength when he had strangled her that her vocal cords were a bit damaged. Shinjuli only looked at her and his eyes darkened. Ning Xuema wished she could curl up into a ball. The feeling of running around naked was too strange. She angrily stared at Shinjuli. "What do you want to do?" Shinjuli stood there for a moment. In the end, he bent down and gently picked her up. His hands inevitably touched her skin and Ning Xuema felt like she had been burned. She tried to pull back but found that she could not move at all. A certain scene from a certain night uncontrollably replayed in her mind. Her charming face turned red and she was both embarrassed and angry. "Let go of me." Shinjuli glanced at her with a complicated look in his eyes. In the end, he sighed and hugged her tightly. Ning Xuema tried her best to ignore the two hands on her body. She closed her eyes and refused to look at him. Her voice was cold and calm. "Shinjuli, if you don't intend to marry me, then don't touch me." Her voice finally had a hint of sharpness in it. After pausing for a moment, Ning Xuema opened her eyes and continued, "But that was in the past. Now, even if you want to marry me, it's impossible. So scram." Shinjuli glanced at her and didn't say anything. He carried her and walked step by step towards the big cauldron. The flickering flames reflected on his face, softening the outline of his face. Ning Xuema looked at the side of his face and then looked at the bronze cauldron in front of her. Suddenly, a frightening thought flashed through her mind. This thought made her hands and feet suddenly turn cold. She struggled desperately to open her acupoints. The big cauldron continued to grow in front of her. Ning Xuema's heart also became heavier and heavier. It was a bronze cauldron that was as tall as two people. There were simple and beautiful dragon and phoenix carvings on top of it. There were also some strange Sanskrit characters, strange flowers, strange plants, and strange beasts. The spiritual energy in the cauldron was very rich. She could tell at a glance that it was not an ordinary item. Normally, if Ning Xuema saw such a high-quality alchemy cauldron, she would definitely think of a way to collect it and refine pills. But at this time, the uneasiness in her heart was too strong. Her heart was hanging high as if something bad was about to happen. But she was powerless to do anything. She tried her best to open her acupoints. Countless spiritual energy crazily attacked her acupoints. Finally, the acupoints loosened a little. Chapter 13:17. She was overjoyed and was about to rush forward when Shinjuli quietly looked at her. That look made Ning Xuema feel as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over her head on a cold winter day. It was as if even her hair was frozen. Shinjuli finally looked down. His eyes were cold. There is no need to struggle. It is useless. He then sealed her acupuncture points again. Shinjuli, what are you trying to do? Ning Xuema's voice trembled. She didn't know if it was because she was angry or scared. Although she already had an answer to his strange actions, it was too cruel. Ning Xuema didn't dare to believe it. Even if he didn't have any feelings for her now, she was still his disciple. If he wanted to kill her, he could just give her a quick death. He wouldn't use such a cruel method to treat her. He wouldn't treat her like that. He wouldn't. At this time, Shinjuli had already carried her to the front of the large cauldron. They were separated by a small distance, but Ning Xuema could feel the heat wave blowing against her face. Her beautiful face slowly turned red. Her heart sank bit by bit as if it was going to sink into the depths of hell. What was he trying to do? Shinjuli silently hugged her. His ice blue eyes quietly looked at her. Ning Xuema felt her hair stand on end from his gaze. She then stared back at him, not to be outdone. Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Ning Xuema, do you want to know about Little Apple and Hong Ti? Shinjuli suddenly opened his mouth and asked an unrelated question. But it made Ning Xuema's heart jump. Her eyes widened. Where are they? Damn, too many things have happened these days. She actually forgot about those two little guys. With their speed, they should have already arrived at Buddha Lotus Mountain, right? Hong Ti didn't know the way, but Little Apple was familiar with Buddha Lotus Mountain. He should have already run back, but why didn't he come to see her? Could it be, an accident happened? No, Shinjuli hadn't seen Little Apple yet, and it should be his first time seeing Hong Ti. But now he knew their names and he even asked her. Did they fall into the hands of Shinjuli? What did you do to them? Shinjuli didn't say anything. Instead, he gently covered her eyes with his hand. A somewhat hoarse voice sounded by her ear. Shui Yimo, if you can come back, this seat will tell you about them. Ning Xuema's heart suddenly sank, and then her whole body was violently thrown upwards. Amidst the countless flames, she saw Shinjuli's cold expression and pale face. Then, the boiling hot medicinal liquid came from all directions and drowned her. She wanted to struggle, but she could not move at all. She could only watch herself sink into the medicinal soup bit by bit, sinking into the purgatory of burning oil bit by bit. In the end, it sank into the depths and could no longer be seen. Above the big cauldron, the medicinal soup rippled, forming layers of ripples. Ning Xuema had heard of the 18 layers of hell in some myths and legends. One of them was to wade through a sea of fire and be plunged into a pot of oil. It was said that when a person committed evil to the extreme after death, they would be plunged into a pot of oil and fried again, but they wouldn't die. They would just keep on enduring. She didn't know what sin she had committed, to actually taste this while she was still alive. The taste of being plunged into a pot of oil. The taste of not being able to live, not being able to die. Bang. A heart-piercing, fiery pain. Her skin was undamaged, but every inch of her flesh seemed to have been plunged into a pot of oil and fried. Chapter 13:18. It was so painful that she kept trembling. It was so painful that she wanted to scream, but when she opened her mouth, the bitter and hot medicine rushed into her mouth. Her mouth was burning with pain and she couldn't say a word. The medicinal soup seeped into her body bit by bit, passing through her limbs and bones, through her pores and through her veins. Wherever it went, it was scorching hot and the convulsive pain was unbearable. Then it gathered in her dantian. Ning Xuema had never experienced such intense pain. She wanted to faint from the pain and never wake up again. However, the medicine seemed to have endless oxygen, and it seemed to have the effect of refreshing her mind. So, she was very sober and she endured this torture with a clear mind. She had thought of countless ways to die, but she had never thought that she would be thrown into a cauldron and boiled to death by her sweetheart. Exploded to death. She knew that she was unlucky because she was a jinx, but this degree of bad luck, wasn't it too melodramatic? How could he do this? How could he be so cold-blooded? In order to avenge Wu Mo, in order to avenge her previous life, he boiled her alive. The hatred in Ning Xuema's heart was overwhelming. She was full of grief, indignation, and despair. The pain was like maggots in the tarsal bone, and her hatred also rose. The little girl in her body finally woke up and she screamed crazily. The little girl also suffered the pain that Ning Xuema suffered, and the effect on her was twice as much as on Ning Xuema. Suddenly, there were countless flames in the ultimate where she was hiding. There were golden talismans circulating in the flames, and the Sanskrit characters were shining in golden light. At first it was a little flame, but then it developed into a prairie fire at lightning speed, approaching her. She quickly set up countless layers of enchantments. Separated by countless layers of enchantments, the little girl still felt a piercing pain. Her whole body was illuminated by the talismans, and she felt like she was going to melt directly. The flame with the golden talisman was getting closer and closer to her. The ruins of End was originally filled with demonic chi, but wherever the flame went, the demonic chi painfully pulled at its body in the fire and finally dissipated. The little loli was in so much pain that she wanted to roll on the ground, but she couldn't. She forced herself to stand there and frantically set up a barrier. However, the barrier collapsed layer by layer in the flames and slowly gathered around her. The closer the flames got, the more the little loli's pain increased. Her head was covered in cold sweat and her heart was filled with despair. She did not expect that Shinjoli really wanted to kill Ning Shuema. It couldn't help but scream, "Momo, save me! So painful. It hurts." His voice was filled with pain and despair. Ning Shuema was in so much pain that it could barely speak. Save it? She couldn't even protect herself now. How could she save it? She was in so much pain in the scalding medicinal liquid, but she couldn't move at all. Her eyes were filled with floating medicinal herbs. It was so dark that she couldn't see the end of it. The little loli watched as the flames broke through her barrier layer by layer like a hot knife through butter. The pain gradually intensified. She suddenly staggered and knelt on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. Her eyes flashed with a touch of despair, and her voice was filled with hatred. "Momo, I'm sorry. He really wants to kill you. He even used such a cruel method. Even the demons wouldn't use such a method." Ning Shuema was in so much pain that her head felt like it was going to explode. However, the little loli's words were incomparably clear in her mind, carrying with them an overwhelming amount of hatred. Ning Shuema's resentment unceasingly churned and clamored. Provoked by those words, it instantly surged and fiercely pounced on Ning Shuema. Chapter 13-19. She couldn't hold it in any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was as black as ink. It melted in the water and disappeared. "Momo, become a demon. Give me your body. I'll bring you out." More than half of the devil aura in the ultimate had disappeared. The little loli was very weak, but she still insisted on shouting for Ning Shuema to become a demon. Become a demon? A sentence flashed in Ning Shuema's mind. It was what the little loli had said when she was bewitched by her. "Momo, become a demon. If you become a demon, you will be emotionless and loveless. You will never be hurt again. You will kill those who hurt you." Emotionless and loveless? If she became a demon, she would never feel pain again? Ning Shuema's eyes turned red. There were patterns looming under her eyes. The psychokinesis in her body flowed crazily. A wisp of black air flowed through her limbs and bones. It hit the acupoints that were sealed. The acupoints began to loosen. Become a demon? If she could escape from this torture by becoming a demon, if she could smash this place and destroy it completely, she would rather become a demon. How do I become a demon? She finally extended an olive branch to the little loli. The little loli was overjoyed. She ignored the pain in her body and screamed, "You just have to say, 'I want to become a demon, I want to become a demon,' 3 times in your mind." It had waited for this opportunity for too long. As long as she said it 3 times, her soul would completely merge with it. It would swallow her and replace her. It could really return to the 3 realms. With the help of this rare good vessel, it could create a bloody storm. Ning Shuema closed her eyes. Finally, she uttered those words word by word in her mind. Following the little loli's instructions, she repeated them 3 times. The little loli was so excited that her whole body was trembling. She even forgot to set up a wizardry barrier to block the burning golden red flame. After a while, Ning Shuema was still floating in the big cauldron. The little loli was still in the ultimate, looking at the flame approaching inch by inch. Nothing had changed. Everything was still the same. Normally, as long as Ning Shuema said those words in her mind, the little loli would be able to break out of the ultimate that had been locking her up. She would directly enter Ning Shuema's consciousness and swallow her soul to replace her. But to his surprise, it was completely useless. It was as if a passageway had been forcibly closed. How could this be? Could it be that it needed to charge out of the ultimate by itself? But I never needed it before, or was it because Ning Shuema had a special physique that it needed to do it on its own? But the little loli looked around at the flames that were flashing with talismans. She was a little scared. The flames were still outside the barrier it had set up, but it was already in so much pain that it wanted to stomp its feet. If it were to rush out, it would definitely have to pass through the flames. It was afraid that it would be completely refined before it could rush out of the sinkhole. It anxiously paced back and forth within the barrier, unable to make a decision for a moment. Ning Xuema was also a little puzzled. Had she become a demon? Why did she feel that there was no difference? Her acupuncture points were still sealed. Her body was still soaked in the boiling medicinal soup and suffering. Damn it, even this demon could not be relied on at the crucial moment. The little loli naturally did not want to give up this rare opportunity. She struck out her palm from within the ultimate. Shinjuli stood stiffly beside the cauldron and looked at it motionlessly. After an unknown period of time, he turned around and looked at the burning sandalwood beside the table. His fingers tightened. Chapter 13:20. Time passed bit by bit and the sandalwood slowly burned. A few wisps of black gas suddenly rose from the cauldron, and the surface of the cauldron began to ripple. The ripples intensified and the surface of the water continued to bubble. It became more and more urgent, as if it was boiling, as if something was about to rush up. Demonic chi. Shinjuli's face sank. He raised his hand and a flame was emitted. With a boom, the three tastes true fire became more vigorous. A mournful scream came from inside, and the flame in the ultimate suddenly flourished. The little loli's enchantment broke several layers in an instant, and the golden talisman became even more dazzling. Her body was twisted beyond recognition, and she broke out in a cold sweat. Finally she could not help but scream, "Shinjuli, you will die a horrible death." Shinjuli. The little loli's voice had materialized, and it came out from Ning Xuema's abdomen. The voice was sharp and dull and it resounded in the hall. Shinjuli's expression became colder. A blue light was emitted and it drilled into the medicinal soup. Ning Xuema was originally dizzy, but she suddenly felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. It was so cold that she was almost frozen. The wisp of ice followed her blood vessels and flowed through her limbs and bones. Wherever it passed, her blood vessels were almost frozen, and it finally flowed into her dantian. The red color that had just gathered in her eyes dissipated in an instant, and it turned into jet-black pupils. There was a clear pain in her eyes. What did he want to do? Was he going to kill her with the combination of cold and heat? The little loli in her dantian felt that her feet were slowly freezing. The fire was clearly in front of her, but she was so cold that she trembled. Her feet were already frozen and she could not move. She could only watch as the enchantments broke one after another. The flame reflected on her pale face, and it clearly reflected her frightened expression. She shouted in Ning Xuema's mind, "Momo! Momo, beg him. Hurry up and beg him. If you don't beg, we will really die." Ning Xuema's face was as white as snow. She gritted her teeth, closed her eyes and said resolutely, "Never. Even if I die, I won't beg him for anything." Ning Xuema didn't say anything, so the little loli began to shout. Her voice was very similar to Ning Xuema's voice. She kept screaming, "Master, I'm in pain. Master, I beg you to let me go." Shinjuli's body swayed as he looked at the boiling cauldron. Steeling his heart, he shot out another flame. Ning Xuema let out a mournful scream. She suddenly began to cry, "Master, how could you do this to me, Master?" Her voice was very similar to Ning Xuema's original voice. Shinjuli's body swayed slightly. He tried his best to stabilize his mind and set up an enchantment above the cauldron, blocking the sound coming from inside. His body was trembling slightly. He turned around and looked at the burning sandalwood beside the table. His heart tightened. There was still half left. The medicinal decoction in the medicinal cauldron kept churning, but there was no longer any black chi. But gradually the medicinal decoction began to calm down. In the medicinal cauldron, Ning Xuema's psychokinesis circulated wildly. Finally she broke through Shinjuli's acupoints. The red light in her eyes was faintly discernible. She jumped up fiercely, trying to escape from this nightmarish cauldron. She hit the enchantment hard and was bounced back into the cauldron. The boiling medicinal decoction drowned her again. When Shinjuli saw the figure, his heart skipped a beat. The blood in his chest churned violently, but he managed to suppress it. "Xuema, hold on. You must hold on." Chapter 13:21. Ning Xuema kept jumping out, but she was bounced back into the medicinal decoction by the barrier. The barrier only shook slightly under her force, but it was still as solid as before. Finally she fell heavily into the medicinal decoction, causing a splash, and then there was no more movement. Inside the cauldron, the boiling medicinal decoction actually calmed down. For a long time there wasn't a single ripple. She fainted. Once she fainted, the psychokinesis in her body was very likely to go berserk, causing her whole body to explode. Shinjuli clenched his hands tightly. Looking at the medicinal cauldron that was no longer rippling, his face became even paler. Shui Yimo, wake up for me. There was still no movement inside the cauldron. Shinjuli's face was pale. His hand touched the cauldron as if he was spasming, and he didn't feel anything even though he was scalded. Shui Yimo, wake up. If you persist, this seat won't hold a grudge against you for trying to assassinate this seat, and you can even be this seat's disciple. The inside of the cauldron was as calm as a pool of stagnant water. Even though the three true fire burned fiercely, it couldn't make the medicinal decoction inside the cauldron bubble again. Shinjuli's figure swayed, and his indifferent expression finally cracked. With a trace of panic, he said in a trembling voice, Ning Shuama, if you persist, this seat will marry you. Haven't you always wanted to marry me? Ning Shuama already didn't know how many times she had fainted from the pain and then woken up. Shinjuli's words were still clear even though they were separated by layers of jade-green waves. He said, Shuama, I will marry you. Ning Shuama only wanted to laugh crazily. She had waited for him to say these words for as long as 10 years. Day and night, she had hoped for him to say these words personally, and then become his bride, to accompany him hand in hand to the ends of the earth. Unexpectedly, she had finally waited for this vow, but it was in a situation where he was going to burn her to death. When he was going to personally throw her into the cauldron to refine her. The inside of the cauldron finally began to ripple again. Ning Shuema's unreasonably hoarse voice came, I don't care. Shinjuli, let me tell you, I don't care. I'd rather not know you in my life. She almost screamed these words out. Shinjuli's face turned pale. His mind became unstable and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Shinjuli's heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone. Even breathing became difficult. Shinjuli's face was as pale as snow. Pain flashed through his eyes. She actually didn't care? Hadn't she always wanted to marry him? She actually wanted to never know him? Not allowed. Shinjuli had fallen into the hands of the same person in both of his lifetimes. Therefore he must hold this person in his hands. However, the ancient devil in her body had to be eliminated. As long as it remained in her body, it was in danger of completely devouring her soul. Therefore Ning Shuema absolutely could not become a demon. This demon-vanquishing soup was something he had painstakingly prepared over the past few days. It was all to get rid of the demonic chi in her body, to get rid of that demon. He knew that she was afraid of water, afraid of drowning, so he specially sent a steady stream of oxygen into the medicinal soup. He couldn't tell her any of this. He couldn't let the demon child realize that everything he did was to get rid of the demon. Otherwise, the demon child and Ning Shuema's soul would coexist as a threat. Therefore he could only let Ning Shuema think that he was going to kill her and boil her alive. The process of getting rid of the demon was very cruel, and he had hesitated before. However, since she could kill him without hesitation in her previous life to save others, why should he hesitate for her? Besides, he was also trying to save her. In order to prevent her soul from being devoured by the demon child and truly perishing in this world. Chapter 1322. In order to prevent her soul from being devoured by the devil child and truly perishing between heaven and earth. Therefore he could only use this method. He believed that before he lost his memory he also wanted to use this method. Otherwise he wouldn't have prepared so many medicinal herbs in advance. He told himself that he couldn't regret it, but seeing her suffer in there, he was in so much pain that he almost suffocated. Once it started, it couldn't end. Shuema, bear with it, bear with it. Another wave of pain that was worse than death. Ning Shuema's vision began to blur again. Her limbs were numb from the pain and she didn't feel like her own. At first, the pain was like a burn between flesh and blood. Later, it became an excruciating pain. Now she felt that her soul was being burned and melting bit by bit. In her hazy consciousness, she heard Shinjuli's voice. His voice was trembling slightly. Shuema, bear with it, bear with it. Ning Shuema wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Irony. What a fucking irony. Bear with it? Bear with it and boil it for a while longer? This was like extorting a confession by torture. When someone fainted, they would be splashed with a basin of cold water to wake them up. When they were awake, they would suffer endless torment. The heat seemed to flow into her heart. It was so hot that it was constantly contracting. It was so painful that she wanted to kill herself. She felt that she couldn't bear it anymore. She had no reason to bear it anymore. Let her die. Let her die a quick death. She really didn't want to live anymore. Living was too tiring, really too tiring. She was destined to be a lone star. She was destined to lead an army. Every step she took was a disaster. She was destined to be alone for a lifetime. She finally caused the death of a group of friends. After causing the death of Shinjuli, who used to love her, she caused the death of herself in such a tragic way. Great, that's great. She should be thrown into the 18 levels of hell and into the boiling oil for a world-destroying demon like her. You've done a great job. The punishment was right. Now that she was in the frying pan, could she just go and meet her death neatly? Could she be given an ending where her soul was destroyed? She didn't want to reincarnate anymore. She wanted her soul to scatter into a million pieces and then turn into a wisp of light, never to wake up again. The heavens seemed to have heard the sincere prayers of this inauspicious person, and decided to take care of her for once. Ning Xuema gradually felt the pain fade away, and the sounds around her gradually disappeared. All the emotions in her heart were drawn away bit by bit, and her mind became blank. She felt that her body was getting lighter and lighter, and her consciousness was getting heavier and heavier. Finally, there was no more pain, only deep sleep. Within the Dantian's ruins of End. The fire was already tearing at the little Loli's clothes. The golden talisman was right in front of her eyes. She knelt on the ground, her face pale. She was sweating profusely as she struggled to support the last layer of the enchantment. Her entire body was engulfed in flames that were as tall as a person. The talisman stuck to the barrier and slowly melted it. The pure golden light shone on her body and burned small holes. She screamed again and again. The tongue of the fire slowly came in through the gaps of the enchantment and swallowed her body. The places that were burned by the fire instantly turned black. The wounds were so deep that her bones could be seen. The lower half of her body that was kneeling on the ground was almost melted by the fire. Her red dress was burning fiercely in the fire. The last layer of the enchantment was broken. In the little Loli's desperate eyes, the fire was overwhelming. She slowly closed her eyes. Was she going to start all over again? Starting all over again? Chapter 13:23. Suddenly, she seemed to have sensed something and opened her eyes. Momo had given up. She had fallen into a deep sleep. The little Loli's figure slowly faded. In the fire, she revealed a bloodthirsty smile and turned into countless streams of light, flying out of the ultimate. Shinjuli's face instantly turned pale. His divine sense could no longer sense Ning Xuema's existence. Impossible, impossible. He had probed before. Her soul was very strong and she was at Earth rank level 9. The inner demon was only around level 8. She could not have been dissolved before the inner demon. Shinjuli's body trembled uncontrollably. Then why? Why couldn't he sense her existence? Calm down. Calm down. Shinjuli forced himself to calm down and carefully probed the situation in the cauldron with his divine sense. The more he looked, the more his heart sank. It was as if his heart had gradually sunk into ice water. The Ning Xuema in the cauldron was no longer Ning Xuema. Although that person was extremely weak, her demonic aura was soaring, reflecting the bronze cauldron red. Where did Ning Xuema go? Shinjuli did not give up and scanned her over and over again. Finally, he found a very faint white light on her body. The white light was somewhat weak, but there was a circle of enchantment protecting that white light. She was still there, but she had fallen into a deep sleep. Her body was controlled by the inner demon. Shinjuli did not know whether to be happy or sad. Looking at the increasingly intense red light in the cauldron, his eyes flashed with a touch of determination. No matter what, he, Shinjuli, must eradicate this demon today. This demon could not hold on for much longer. He raised his hand and a pure golden light was emitted, drilling into the cauldron. Ning Xuema felt her body suddenly warm up. Something drilled into her blood vessels and then firmly protected a certain part of her body. It was like a golden shield, emitting a faint golden light. She probed with her divine sense. That was the place where Ning Xuema's soul was sleeping. She tried to use her telekinesis, but it bounced back instantly, almost causing her telekinesis to collapse. Why did Shinjuli suddenly protect Ning Xuema's soul? Didn't he want to kill her? An ominous feeling suddenly flashed through the little Loli's heart. Before she could react, heavenly lightning fell from the sky and heavily struck her body. Instantly, a ring of sparks burst out. Ah! Ning Xuema screamed. She felt that half of her soul had melted in an instant, and her body had turned black from being struck by lightning. Ning Xuema screamed, Shinjuli, you actually want to kill Momo? How can you be so heartless? Shinjuli didn't say anything. Another heavenly thunder struck down with the force of a thunderbolt. Ning Xuema used the last of her telekinesis to set up a bounded domain to block most of the power, but there was still a fish that escaped the net. Her soul melted and only a small part of it was left. In the severe pain she suddenly understood something. She used her divine sense to explore the location of the golden shield, and her heart suddenly sank. She was fooled. From the beginning, Shinjuli didn't want to deal with Ning Xuema, but her. He wanted to completely destroy her. If she guessed correctly, the light golden thing should be used by Shinjuli to protect Ning Xuema's soul. He sacrificed her body to protect her soul, and then completely destroyed himself. Ning Xuema's face was pale. Once the third heavenly thunder struck, she would completely disappear from this world. Although Ning Xuema's body would also be destroyed, her soul would still be there. Shinjuli would rebuild her body. Chapter 1324. She was fooled. She was fooled. If she had known earlier, she would have formed a symbiotic soul with Ning Xuema. That way she could still threaten Shinjuli. But now he was completely protecting Ning Xuema's soul. She couldn't form a symbiotic soul with Ning Xuema. That was his plan from the beginning. She was actually fooled. She thought that he really wanted to kill Ning Xuema. He even planned to dissipate his own soul and wait for Ning Xuema to reincarnate. This loss was really too big. But now she had no other choice. She could only watch herself completely disappear from this world. Her vision turned black and she felt that her body was melting inch by inch with an irreversible force. When the second bolt of divine lightning struck, Shinjuli's face was as pale as paper, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He checked Ning Xuema's soul and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, under the protection of his soul, her soul wasn't harmed by the divine lightning. That faint golden light was actually a part of his own soul. He had separated it to protect the sleeping Ning Xuema. The two bolts of divine lightning that struck down just now were all used on his soul. They didn't hurt Ning Xuema. This was really a way to hurt the enemy by 1,000, but Shinjuli was determined to completely eliminate that demon today, so he didn't care about the cost of damaging his soul. His body trembled slightly, and he weakly held onto the bronze cauldron. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and summoned the third bolt of divine lightning. With this bolt, the demon would completely disappear. Momo. Shinjuli's heart sank. A red shadow suddenly flashed in midair, and at the same time, a red light carrying a vast demonic aura flew towards him. A white light flew out of Shinjuli's sleeve and collided with the red light in midair. The divine lightning struck at the same time. Three forces that were enough to destroy heaven and earth collided with each other, and an intense energy burst out. That red shadow was Shuilan. His face was pale from the shock and he was knocked back a few steps by the shock wave. Kacha! A crisp sound rang out as if something had broken. Shinjuli's heart sank. A wizardry barrier. The aftermath of the three forces had actually broken the barrier he had set up above the cauldron. Shuilan naturally wouldn't let go of this rare opportunity. He jumped into the boiling hot medicinal soup like lightning, endured the piercing pain and carried Ning Xuema up. He looked at the unconscious Ning Xuema in his arms. Her face was as pale as snow, and her body was covered with wounds. It was almost impossible to see her original appearance. His hands trembled slightly. How could his Momo be injured to this extent? How could Shinjuli do such a cruel thing to her? A ball of white light flew towards him with the fury of thunder. Shinjuli said coldly, "Let her go." Shuilan couldn't dodge in time, so he could only resist. Although Shinjuli was seriously injured, he was still a god and his power was far above his. The white light became stronger and stronger and the red light was forced to retreat. After resisting this wave with great difficulty, he had already retreated 7 or 8 steps. At this time, Ning Xuema in his arms suddenly moved. His body stiffened and he lowered his head to ask, "Momo?" Shinjuli's heart trembled. He sensed that Ning Xuema's soul under his soul was gradually waking up. She woke up? Shinjuli didn't know whether to be happy or sad. She woke up at this time. Could he still continue to strike her body? In this moment, the white light had weakened a lot. The red light took advantage of the situation to chase after it, and the two returned to a stalemate. Chapter 1325. Ning Xuema's soul slowly woke up and found that she was trapped in a pale golden cover. She could faintly smell Shinjuli's breath on it. Was this Shinjuli's new way of torturing her? Ning Xuema's heart was suddenly filled with fear. She subconsciously hit the pale golden cover with all her might. However, the cover was impregnable and didn't budge at all. Would there be some kind of fire coming out of it to burn her in a while? Thinking of this, Ning Xuema began to crazily hit the cover. However, it was the soul of a god after all. Her soul colliding with it was like hitting a stone with an egg. The more she couldn't get out, the more afraid she was. The more afraid she was, the more desperately she wanted to get out. Her soul faintly felt like it was going to dissipate. Shen Jiuli originally planned to lock up Ning Xuema's soul, but later she hit it too hard. Her soul felt like it was going to dissipate. He could only withdraw his own soul and let her out. Ning Xuema felt as if she had been knocked out of the light golden barrier. Just as she let out a sigh of relief, a powerful suction force suddenly appeared above her. She didn't have time to react before her whole body was sucked up. Everything in front of her eyes turned black and then light appeared again. Following that, she felt a familiar, bone-piercing pain. In Shui Yilan's arms, Ning Xuema's eyelashes fluttered. He held his breath. Momo woke up at this time. Would she break free from his arms again? Shen Jiuli looked at Ning Xuema, who was gradually waking up, and a complicated light flashed through his eyes. He then looked at Shui Yilan's attentive look on Ning Xuema's face and then looked at the way he held her intimately. It was as if a huge stone was pressing down on his heart. The white light suddenly intensified, forcing the red light to retreat. Shen Jiuli's voice was cold. Shui Yilan, let go of her. Ning Xuema's eyelashes fluttered, and she finally opened her eyes. Shui Yilan could feel Ning Xuema's gaze on him, but he couldn't spare a glance at her. He was almost defeated by Shen Jiuli's power. Ning Xuema moved a little in his arms. He was so angry that he almost passed out. He said helplessly, Momo, don't move. When Ning Xuema first woke up, she was in a daze. It took her a long time to recognize that the person hugging her was Shui Yilan. Her body stiffened and she subconsciously wanted to push him away. However, when she looked at Shen Jiuli, her hands paused. In the end, she put them down and allowed Shui Yilan to hug her. Shen Jiuli naturally saw her series of movements. He felt a burst of anger in his heart and said in a deep voice, Ning Xuema, come here. Past? What was he doing there? Be thrown into the pot to be boiled again? Ning Xuema sneered but didn't say anything. Shen Jiuli saw that Ning Xuema was obediently nestled in Shui Yilan's arms, ignoring his words. Could it be that her soul was damaged so she didn't hear his words? So Shen Jiuli repeated it again. This time his tone was a little stiff. Ning Xuema, come here. Was he so persistent in wanting to boil her to death? Did he hate her to this extent? Ning Xuema suddenly wanted to laugh. Her once most intimate lover was now the person who wanted her to die the most. Today's sword points, in the past we were in the foam. The warmth in the hair, all for the floating pavilion. In fact, she didn't want to live anymore. She was finally free, but unexpectedly she woke up again. Heaven was playing with her. Ning Xuema glanced at him. There was no emotion in her eyes. Her voice was so faint that it was almost inaudible. Shen Jiuli, do you want to kill me again? Shen Jiuli held his breath. Chapter 1326. Shen Jiuli's breath caught in his throat. The demon in her body hadn't completely dissipated yet. He needed to examine her properly to see if she needed it. Ning Xuema's indifferent voice continued, I'll do it for you. Before she finished speaking, she turned her hand and condensed a sharp dagger. She didn't even blink as she ruthlessly stabbed towards her own chest. Momo, don't. Xuema. Two voices rang out at the same time. The dagger in Ning Xuema's hand was knocked out of her hand by Shen Jiuli's white light. Because of this distraction, Shui Yilan's red light fiercely smashed into Shen Jiuli's body. His body swayed and his face became even paler. Shen Jiuli turned his hand and sent a white light towards Shui Yilan again. Shui Yilan was carrying a person after all, so it wasn't that convenient for him to fight back. In addition, his strength wasn't as good as Shen Jiuli's, so he was once again forced back by the white light. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Suddenly, a green light flew into the air and revolved around Shui Yilan. Although the green light was weak, it had a very strong healing effect. Shui Yilan's boiling blood actually calmed down under the effect of the green light. Momo. She actually helped him heal his injuries. Shui Yilan's eyes lit up and his spirit was greatly aroused. Shen Jiuli's face turned pale. His eyes fell on Ning Xuema's body. Xuema? Ning Xuema closed her eyes. She waved her hand and a red dress appeared on her body. Blood flowed down like a small stream, but she didn't care at all. Her eyes turned to Shen Jiuli and her voice was indifferent. Shinjuli, whether it's the previous life or this life, I don't owe you anything. I know you're a god and we're not your match. If you insist on taking my life, then fine. I'll do it myself. If you're done with your revenge, let me go. Her face was as pale as snow, and her eyes were dark and gloomy. She looked at Shinjuli indifferently and said, "If you want to kill me, I will do it myself. If you have enough revenge, then let me go." With a flip of her hand, she condensed a dagger and pressed it against her own chest. She stabbed it bit by bit. Her eyebrows didn't even wrinkle. She even smiled and said in a mocking tone, "Dizun, you say the word. My life is yours to handle." She actually used an honorific to address him? Shinjuli clenched his fists in his sleeves. His face was as calm as still water. "Ning Shuema, I'm only doing this to get rid of the demon in your body. Come here." The expression in Ning Shuema's dark eyes was hard to decipher. To get rid of the demon in her body? She didn't believe his stupid excuse. He was merely taking revenge for that nuisance Wuemo. He wanted to take revenge for the stab she gave him in his previous life. From the looks of it, he hasn't had enough yet, has he? He still wants to take my life, right? You don't have to do it. Shuema will do it herself. Ning Shuema's dagger pierced a few more times. Below it was her beating heart. Shinjuli's breath stopped. "I won't kill you. Come here. Let me see your wound." Her blood was still flowing. It stung his eyes. Shuilan's heart sank. He was afraid that she would really go over. "Momo?" Ning Shuema didn't have the slightest intention to go forward. Instead, she retreated a few steps. She sneered and said word by word, "Don't cry crocodile tears. Shinjuli, I won't believe a single word you say." Shinjuli's voice had a trace of anger. "Ning Shuema, do you think you can leave with him? Don't force your master to make a move." "Master?" Ning Shuema simply wanted to laugh out loud. What kind of master would cook his own disciple alive like him? Even if he had a deep hatred for his enemy, he might not be able to do such a vicious thing. Chapter 1327. Shinjuli was speechless. Since ancient times, only the master would expel the disciple. Since when did the disciple swear to not want the master anymore? Ning Shuema, don't mess around. I will explain everything to you slowly. No need. Ning Shuema interrupted him. Shinjuli, either you kill me today or you let me go. I will leave with Shuilan. Leave with Shuilan? Shinjuli looked at her and said coldly, Ning Shuema, I always keep my word. If I say I won't kill you, then I won't kill you. But if you leave with Shuilan today, we will cut off all ties. Cut off all ties. He actually wanted to use this to threaten her? Shinjuli, aren't you overestimating yourself? Ning Shuema looked at him and revealed a mocking smile. She turned around and walked toward Shuilan. Her tone was so light that it almost disappeared with the wind. Shinjuli, you should have cut off all ties a long time ago. Shinjuli's face was pale, and his hands were trembling in his sleeves. He watched as Ning Shuema walked step by step toward Shuilan. His heart tightened inch by inch. It was as if she was walking out of his life and would never come back. He really wanted to rush up and take her back, but the words should have cut off all ties a long time ago nailed him to the ground. Maybe she really never loved him, whether it was in her previous life or this life. She was just using him, but in her previous life she wanted his heart. In this life she didn't do anything. Why did she leave? Blood was still dripping from her body. As she walked, the blood dripped onto the snow-white floor. It was bright and glaring. Shinjuli couldn't help but raise his hand. A white light covered her head. This was the light of healing. It could stop the pain and stop the bleeding. Shuilan's expression changed. He thought that Shuilan was going to pull Ning Shuema back again. He immediately raised his hand as well. The red light was released later but arrived first, directly meeting the white light. He thought that there would be an earth-shattering sound, but he didn't expect that the white light and red light would dissipate as soon as they touched. The red light didn't stop there and directly hit Shinjuli. Shinjuli's body swayed slightly before he steadied himself. He looked at Shuilan and curled his fingers slightly as if he wanted to do something. However, Ning Shuema's movement made his fingers freeze. Ning Shuema slowly raised her hand. A pair of shining eme piercings appeared in her palm. One of them was already broken while the other was still intact. Shinjuli's eyes narrowed. This eme piercer gave him a vague sense of familiarity. Clang. With a crisp sound, the pair of eme piercings were thrown to the ground at Shinjuli's feet. Shinjuli, this is what you gave me before. Now, I'm returning it to you. I don't owe you anything anymore. Shinjuli was speechless. The pair of Amei piercings had already gained intelligence. One of them was broken by Shui Yilan and lost its intelligence. The other one, however, was in perfect condition. Its spirituality was still there. Suddenly being abandoned, it seemed unwilling. It jumped up from the ground and flew in front of Ning Xuema, as if it wanted to return to her body. Shui Yilan flicked his sleeve. The Amei piercer fell to the ground again as if it was blocked by a strong wind. There was another clang. The Amei piercer felt wronged. It half raised its body and looked at Ning Xuema, as if it didn't believe that Ning Xuema had really abandoned it. Ning Xuema directly threw herself into Shui Yilan's arms and closed her eyes. Shui Yilan, take me away. Chapter 1328. No matter if it was her body or soul, they were both seriously injured. She had also reached her limit and couldn't hold on any longer. That pair of Amei piercers had always been her favorite. When one of them broke, her heart ached so much that it almost bled. She had originally planned to trick Xinjiuli into going to the Immortal Kingdom to find that blacksmith to fix it, but now there was no need. She didn't want it anymore. No matter if it was good or bad, she didn't want it anymore. Everything she was wearing right now was condensed from her spirit power. She didn't have a single thing that belonged to Xinjiuli. If she wanted to break it off, then she would break it off completely and cleanly. Shui Yilan hugged her as if he was hugging a lost treasure. His voice was slightly choked. Momo, let's go home. His Momo was finally willing to leave with him. This time it was automatic. Ning Xuema closed her eyes and didn't say anything else. Shui Yilan looked at Xinjiuli one last time. Xinjiuli looked like he was nailed to the ground. He didn't have any intention of moving. Shui Yilan's lips hooked into a mysterious smile. He hugged Ning Xuema and turned into a streak of red light as he left. Ning Xuema's final words echoed in the air. Xinjiuli, if you let me go this time, the next time we meet, we'll be enemies. Xinjiuli's face was snow white as he stood there. If he insisted on stopping them, these two people wouldn't be able to escape. However, at this moment he couldn't reach out his hand. They should have broken it off long ago. Should they have broken it off long ago? The next time they met, they would be enemies. Enemies? He had never thought that there would be a day when they would be enemies. Even when she was Shui Yimo in his previous life, he hadn't thought of it. The Amei piercers on the ground probably understood that they had been abandoned by their owner. They didn't move and the light on their bodies dimmed quite a bit. Xinjiuli raised his sleeve and sucked them into his hand. The broken one naturally didn't react. The good one also had a lifeless aura. They still carried the scent of their original owners, which was faint and fragrant. He closed his eyes and sensed their bodies. Intermittent, sporadic scenes seemed to flash before his eyes. Great God, I really know how to ride a sword. Ah. Very good, give me a ride. Ah. Guru, you're so heavy you should go on a diet? Xinjiuli felt suffocated. His heart seemed to be slowly clenched by something. He understood that this should be the scene of him and her before he lost his memories. It was actually so warm and funny. So he also had such a mischievous time. So the two of them used to be so harmonious. Countless emotions whizzed in and whizzed out. He stood there for a long time as if he had become a fossilized statue. Fire. There was fire everywhere. Ning Xuema felt as if she was about to melt under the golden light of the fire. She felt a burning pain all over her body, as if she had been thrown back into the cauldron. She ran as fast as she could, but she couldn't get out of the fire's range. Ning Xuema could only watch as she was slowly surrounded by the fire. Tongues of fire licked her clothes and devoured her flesh. Ning Xuema woke up from her deep sleep again. She was sweating profusely. Everywhere was red. Red walls, red decorations. It was very similar to the fire in her dream. Ning Xuema's body stiffened. Her mind was still a bit hazy. She struggled to escape, but once she moved, she pulled on the wounds on her body. She was in so much pain that her face turned pale. The pain made her suddenly wake up. She finally realized that this was the Demon Palace, her residence in her previous life. There was no fire. Chapter 1329. Her body was still in unbearable pain. She had already treated it, but her skin still felt like it was cooked. Just a slight touch would cause her to feel unbearable pain. It caused her to not be able to sleep well. It was as if there was a fire burning in her heart all the time, causing her to be impatient. She had never suffered so much before. And this sin was brought by the person she thought she loved the most. Injustice, anger, despair. Countless negative emotions gathered in her chest and condensed into monstrous hatred. It made her heart feel as if there was a fire burning in her heart all the time, causing her to be impatient. She wanted to disregard everything and kill him again. She also wanted to pull him into the sea of fire and perish together. But she was temporarily unable to do all these, unable to do it. The only thing she could do was to cut him in half with a knife. Never come into contact with him again. As long as she opened her eyes, her chest would be boiling with countless negative emotions, making her want to explode. Could it be that these were the emotions after becoming a devil? That day in the cauldron, she finally chanted the incantation to attract the devil, but she did not feel that she had immediately become powerful. After that, she did not talk to the little lowly again, so she was not sure whether she had become a devil or not. She had tried to look for the little lowly in her dantian, but her dantian was silent and dark, and she could not find anything. Originally, when she had negative emotions in her heart, the little lowly's voice would desperately tempt her. Now that her negative emotions were about to explode, she did not hear the little lowly's voice again. Had he already entered the demonic path? So the little lowly's goal was achieved and she did not disturb her anymore? At that time, the little lowly almost had the opportunity to promote the benefits of becoming a devil, saying that there was no love, no hatred, no resentment, no sadness, no joy. It was even more than the 4 elements that the monks preached. It was as if the 8 elements were all empty. But now she did not have any of those benefits. She could not think of anything right now. Once she thought of something, her head would explode with pain. To say that there were no benefits was not entirely true. That time when she was searching for the little lowly in her dantian, a strand of psychokinesis touched something inside and she actually heard a slight squeaking sound. Then, a strand of extremely strong psychokinesis came from that thing and directly entered her limbs and bones. That time, when she finished investigating and opened her eyes, she found that her power had increased by a large margin. She had just broken through to Earth rank level 9, but now she was more than halfway there. She had the intention of breaking through to Heaven rank level 1, but so what if he broke through? She was still no match for that person. He still couldn't throw that person into the pot for revenge. This feeling was like a commoner fighting against a billionaire. There was no hope of winning at all. Then what was the point of leveling up? At her current level, although her lifespan was longer, she would still die one day. Once they reached the Heaven rank, they wouldn't age or die. Am I a devil now? If he went out again, wouldn't he be hunted down by all sorts of righteous forces? And now, the Sun Moon sect was the largest organization in the righteous Tao. If they wanted to kill her, Helian Xiao, Yelu Jing, and the smiling faces of her fellow disciples who had celebrated her return that day flashed through her mind. These people were all her friends and they had never done anything wrong to her. Some of them were even her closest friends. Perhaps when they met again in the martial arts world, she would become their enemy. Looking at the things around her, she suddenly felt a sense of boredom. Chapter 1330. She suddenly felt a sense of weariness in her heart. Looking at the things around her, she felt even more frustrated. She closed her eyes and forcefully suppressed this feeling of weariness. She suppressed all the images that were involuntarily churning in her mind. Every time she moved her body, it hurt terribly. The most painful thing was not her body but her soul. Her soul had suffered a great deal of damage, and she could only rely on sleeping to recover bit by bit. Every time Shui Lan came to see her, he would see her sleeping soundly. But even in her sleep, her brows would often furrow, and there would be cold sweat on her face, as though she was enduring some kind of pain. When he applied medicine for her, he tried his best to be gentle. But her injuries were too deep and there were too many wounds. Every time Shui Lan applied medicine for her, she would furrow her brows tightly in her sleep, and there would be a look of pain on her face. Ning Xuema's few moments of consciousness were no different from when she was asleep. She would just lie quietly on the bed, staring blankly at something. When Shui Lan spoke to her, she would not respond. It was as though she was living in her own world. Ning Xuema spent a month of this sleepy life, and her injuries were finally much better. Only her mental state did not improve much. Shui Lan came to talk to her every day, especially with some interesting things to make her laugh, but she did not respond at all. Finally, there was one time when he forcefully turned her face, forcing her to look at him. "Momo, look at me. Talk to me." Ning Xuema was indeed very cooperative. She looked at him motionlessly, and there was no light in her eyes. She was like a wooden doll that had lost its soul. Shui Lan was creeped out by her stare and finally he surrendered. Another month passed, and Ning Xuema's injuries gradually healed. However, her mental state was still very weak. Although she was awake, it seemed like she would fall asleep at any moment. The godly doctor that Shuilan had captured said in a trembling voice, "Perhaps you should bring this lady out for a walk." Shuilan tightened his grip on the teacup, causing it to shatter. What if they bumped into Shinjuli again? He looked at him coldly. "If you can't think of another way, you can go die." The godly doctor was so worried that his hair had turned white. He was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks. In the end, he said helplessly, "This lady is suffering from a mental illness and needs time to recuperate. Let her walk around the garden and look at the flowers and clouds. Maybe she will feel better and the knot in her heart will slowly be untied." Shuilan, where did flowers come from in the demon realm? His eyes darkened. Just as he was about to pinch this godly doctor to death, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He paused, and after a while, a sincere smile appeared on his face. 3 days later, in the quiet room, warm sunlight shone in. Ning Xuema slowly opened her eyes and looked at the flickering sunlight in a daze. This was the scene that Shuilan saw when he came in. The sunlight shone on her face, giving her a gentle layer of warmth. Some of the sunlight also reflected in her eyes, and she finally looked a little spirited. Her long eyelashes could be seen clearly under the sunlight, leaving a shadow under her eyes. She really needed to go out and bask in the sunlight. She looked pretty good under the sunlight. Shuilan walked in front of Ning Xuema. His tall figure blocked some of the sunlight. With his back facing the light, he held her hand. "Momo, do you want to go out for a walk?" She had been basking in the sunlight for so long, and her fingers were still cold. Chapter 1331. Moreover, without the effect of the sunlight, her face was still cold and emotionless. Ning Xuema quietly looked at him for a long time, so long that Shuilan thought she was distracted again. She tilted her head and finally said, "No." When Shuilan heard her voice, a warm current surged in his heart. She hadn't said a word for 2 months. Now that she finally opened her mouth, although it was only 2 words, it was a good start. Her voice was still a bit hoarse, no longer as clear and pleasant as before. She was also becoming more and more dispirited, not interested in anything. Every day she would stay in her room, either sleeping or daydreaming. Every day Shuilan lived in fear and trepidation. He was afraid that one day she would fall asleep and never wake up again. "Momo, how did you become like this?" When she was Shuiemo, although she was indifferent, he could still see her smile often. When she was Ning Xuema, she was the one who laughed the most. She was always in high spirits, just like a proud little lion. But now, it was as if she had lost all her emotions, like a wooden doll that couldn't move or smile. He had to find the original her. Today he must drag her out for a walk. Shuilan said again, "Momo, it's sunny outside. Don't you want to go out and see?" After a while there was no response. Ning Xuema seemed to have fallen asleep again. Shuilan said a few more words to coax her to go out, but she didn't respond. She just stood there with her back facing Shuilan, lost in thought. Shuilan looked at Ning Xuema, who had given up on herself. He couldn't tell if he was angry or what. He suddenly bent down and picked her up. Looking at her, he smiled gently. "Momo, since you don't want to go, I'll carry you out." Ning Xuema. She looked at his slightly evil smile, and her body stiffened slightly. Then she slowly relaxed, found a comfortable position in his arms, and closed her eyes. Shuilan. At the very least, it meant that Momo didn't reject his embrace. This could be considered a good thing among the bad, right? Shuilan tried to find joy in the midst of bitterness. Sighing, he carried her and walked outside. Along the way, Ning Xuema quietly nestled in his arms, as if she had fallen asleep. Wherever Shuilan passed by, countless fiendish demons knelt down. Just as they were about to shout, "Long live the demon emperor," he flicked his sleeve and those fiendish demons shut their mouths. Momo needed to recuperate, they couldn't disturb her. After Shuilan walked past, countless demons looked at each other and saw their own eyes widened in amazement. Their demon king. When? He was so careful, as if he was hugging a fragile treasure. Their curiosity was piqued. Every one of them wished they could become clairvoyants just to see who that woman was. Unfortunately, the demon king hid her very well. Even with so many eyes, they still couldn't see what the woman in the demon king's arms looked like. In the demon realm's garden, indescribable flowers bloomed one after another, red, yellow, purple. Hundreds of flowers were in full bloom, blooming fiercely and fiercely. A cool breeze blew past as if it was a rain of petals. The sun was shining brightly, and the fragrance of flowers floated in the air. Shuilan lowered his head and said gently, "Momo, wake up. Chapter 1332. Ning Xuema slowly opened her eyes and met Shui Yilan's affectionate gaze. She looked at him for a while, then looked away and looked at the flowers around her. They were really beautiful, very beautiful. The barren soil of the demon world was not suitable for flowers to grow. Demons, who were naturally cruel creatures, also did not cultivate the elegant hobby of appreciating flowers. Therefore, not a single flower had bloomed in the demon world for 10,000 years. It was also late autumn, when hundreds of flowers withered. In order to make such a large sea of flowers, Shui Yilan must have put in a lot of effort. She quietly looked at the flowers in a daze, not knowing what she was thinking. A beautiful and bewitching flower suddenly appeared in front of her, followed by Shui Yilan's smile. "Momo, look, these are your favorite flowers. I purposely plucked some from hell and brought them back." In fact, Shui Yilan's words were very implicit. How did he pick some? He pulled out all the red spider lilies on the side of the Bridge of Helplessness. As a result, the Bridge of Helplessness was still bare. He held a large pile of flowers and rushed back to the demon world. He planted them in his own garden and let people take good care of them. He nourished them with telekinesis, just so that Ning Xuema could appreciate them today. Ning Xuema stretched out her hand and took the bouquet of flowers in the palm of her hand to play with. The bright red spider lily slowly bloomed on her fingertips. The petals swayed like a bright flame, quietly burning in her hand. The red petals made her hand seem even whiter, as if there was no blood in it. Ning Xuema looked at the beautiful and bewitching flower, and her eyes flashed with an unknown light. The red spider lilies in her hand left the ground and slowly withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. A red light flashed. Shui Yilan reflexively wanted to inject telekinesis into the flower, but Ning Xuema blocked him. She looked at the gradually withered flower and said in a mocking tone, "Flowers from hell should live in hell." Shui Yilan was stunned. Finally, he slowly tightened his arms and buried her in his arms. There was a trace of heartache in his voice. "Momo, I will accompany you in hell." Ning Xuema slowly closed her eyes and remained silent. Shui Yilan stood in the garden with her in his arms for a long time. It was so long that the sun was already hanging high in the sky, emitting a vigorous golden light. The two of them were both dressed in red, and standing in the colorful garden was indescribably pleasing to the eye. Ning Xuema was breathing evenly in his arms. She seemed to have fallen asleep. He looked at Ning Xuema's quiet sleeping face and his thin lips curved slightly, revealing a faint smile. "Momo, I'm willing to endure your hell." Now, the entire demonic world knew that the demonic king had someone he loved the most. He accompanied and cared for her, and even used his telekinesis to nourish a large garden just to win her smile. The garden. A large field of flowers. Most of the demons didn't know what flowers were. If they were asked if they liked flowers, they would ask, "What are flowers? Is it good?" It was inedible and tasteless. It was beautiful. The demons would be even more disdainful. "It's not delicious and there's no demonic energy. What's the use of looking good?" That was why a demon's thinking was so simple and crude. It was just so boring. So Shui Yilan's romantic way of planting a large garden for Ning Xuema might be romantic enough to make them want to scream, but in the eyes of the demons, the demonic king seemed to be a bit improper. The people of the demonic world were very worried, and the ministers of the demonic world were also very worried. But a small group of people were very happy. Chapter 1333. However, a small group of people were very happy. They finally found a reason to rebel and establish themselves as kings, making the demon realm independent from the demon realm. Ever since the Great War of Immortals and Devils 3,000 years ago, only a small portion of the devil race was left. Shui Yilan then brought that small portion of the devil race to the demon realm. Through the gradual evolution, demon and devil had gradually merged into one, evolving into demons and devils. These years, the demons grew stronger bit by bit, and some demons had the idea of independence. They wanted to establish themselves as kings. No, they wanted to become the demon king, the demon king. The power pyramid of the demon palace was formed by the demon king and the three protectors. Shui Yilan had not returned to the demon palace for a long time, so one of the protectors in the demon palace began to have evil thoughts. He began to secretly gather troops, wanting to become the demon king himself. Bloodthirsty was an Earth rank level 9 great demon. In the demon realm he was second only to Shui Yilan. He had always wanted to overthrow Shui Yilan, and now he finally found a good opportunity. However, he was not stupid. He would not start a rebellion right away. He wanted to build momentum first. Some rumors began to spread in the demon realm, such as, The weather has been bad these days. It must be because of that vixen by the Demon King's side. The war with the immortal realm failed again. It must be that vixen who brought bad luck. Why does the Demon King favor her so much? Our demon realm has always respected strength. That vixen looks like she can be blown away by the wind. She needs protection wherever she goes. How can she be favored by the Demon King? The Demon King must have been blinded by her. There were countless rumors like this, and the more they spread, the worse it sounded. The momentum was enough, and the show began. In the Demon Palace, ministers began to talk about all kinds of bad things about Ning Xuema. According to the signs of the heavens, she was a disaster. Their wise and mighty emperor could not have such a disaster by his side. She would endanger the demon realm and so on. Shui Yilan's aura became stronger and colder. Looking at the three ministers kneeling below and listening to their fierce criticism of Ning Xuema, he finally could not help but take action and suppress her. The demon palace was covered in blood. Everyone was silent out of fear, and the rumors seemed to have stopped. Late at night, Bloodthirsty Protector's mansion. Bloodthirsty stood in the courtyard, looking at the dark clouds covering the bright moon little by little. He gave a mysterious smile. The calm before the storm. Another day the sky was clear and sunlight filled the air. Shui Yilan held Ning Xuema in his arms as they walked through the sea of flowers. Behind them there was a chubby boy who was about 3 or 4 years old. He was the servant boy that Shui Yilan had given to Ning Xuema. Shui Yilan found that Ning Xuema seemed to like children more in the past. She liked chubby and cute things. Therefore he tried to bring the cutest and most adorable child in the entire devil world into the devil palace. He gave it a chubby name, Tang Yuan, and gave it to Ning Xuema. Shui Yilan observed for a few days. Ning Xuema did not have much of a reaction when she saw Tang Yuan. She just sat there quietly and did not say anything. At first Tang Yuan was still a little restrained in front of her, but later on he chattered non-stop. Although Ning Xuema never responded to him, she did not reject Tang Yuan's approach. Moreover, the gloominess between her brows seemed to dissipate a little. Therefore Shui Yilan allowed Tang Yuan to get closer and closer to Ning Xuema. In the end, Tang Yuan got a small bed of his own in the quiet room. Sticking to Ning Xuema. Shui Yilan looked at Tang Yuan's small bed and gritted his teeth. Chapter 1334. Shui Yilan looked at Tang Yuan's small bed and clenched his teeth. He had never stayed overnight in this quiet room before, but this white and fat dumpling actually managed to get a bed in just a few days. Now Tang Yuan had become Ning Xuema's little tail, following her wherever she went. Tang Yuan followed behind her, panting. His little face was a little red from exhaustion. He said in a childish voice, Your Majesty, walk slower. I can't keep up." Why would he follow a burden when he was strolling in the garden? Shui Yilan wanted to shake Tang Yuan off and walk even faster. Tang Yuan tried his best to run forward with his 2 short legs, but he could not catch up no matter how hard he tried. In the end he was tripped by a branch and fell to the ground. He was stunned. Shui Yilan's figure was already far away. He suddenly burst into tears, his face full of grievance. Momo, Tang Yuan can't catch up to you. Don't you want Tang Yuan anymore?" His cries traveled far and wide. Ning Xuema's eyelashes trembled. She opened her eyes and looked at Shui Yilan quietly. Shui Yilan felt a little guilty under her gaze. His body stiffened and he stopped in his tracks. Tang Yuan saw that the red figure in front of him had stopped. He stopped crying and chased after her with a smile. Shui Yilan looked at the white ball rolling behind him. The corner of his mouth twitched. The white ball rolled in front of him and sat down. Its apple-like face was covered in sweat. Suddenly there was a faint smell of blood in the air. Shui Yilan's eyes darkened. He gently put Ning Xuema down. "Momo, stay here for a while. I'll go take care of some things. I'll be back soon." He set up a protective barrier for Ning Xuema and ordered the 8 experts to protect her in the dark. Only then did he turn into a red light and fly towards the demon palace. Ning Xuema's injuries had almost recovered. She was now at Earth Stage Level 9. Within the demon palace, as long as she didn't want to, no one could hurt her. Actually, the people that Shui Yilan had arranged for were not as experienced as Ning Xuema in terms of level and combat experience. However, Shui Yilan was afraid that she would lose her will to live and not resist at all. That was why he set up a bunch of barriers and troops to protect her. Ning Xuema stood there calmly, looking at the rolling clouds in the distance. No one knew what she was thinking. The smell of blood was getting stronger. Ning Xuema frowned uncomfortably. In the distance, a small group of rebels was rushing over with a thick stench of blood. Their faces were ferocious, and it was obvious that they had gone berserk from the killing. When they saw Ning Xuema in the sea of flowers, their eyes lit up. With a whistle, the rebels from all walks of life began to gather in the garden. They wanted to take down Ning Xuema and force Shui Yilan to submit. Ning Xuema stood in the layers of barriers. The several demon world experts who were protecting her were fighting with the rebels. Blood flowed like a river and flesh and blood flew everywhere. The scene was extremely tragic. However, there were more and more rebels at the converging path. The 8 experts fell one by one. Tang Yuan was so scared that he hugged Ning Xuema's calf and trembled. Ning Xuema had seen such a scene many times in her previous life and this life, so she did not have much of a reaction. The 8 experts all fell. The rebels began to attack the barrier that Shui Yilan had set up around her. Ning Xuema still stood there indifferently without any intention of resisting. In fact, she did not want to live anymore. She was too tired in this life. If she could die here, it would be a form of relief. Perhaps she would return to her own world and bid farewell to this unlucky world. She would have no more interactions with the people in this world. Tang Yuan, who was hugging her calf, trembled even more. Chapter 1335. Tang Yuan, who was hugging her calf, trembled even more violently. However, when he realized that the rebel army had already broken through a layer of enchantment, he made up his mind and pushed Ning Xuema back. His young voice was filled with determination. "Momo, run quickly. I'll attract their attention." After saying that, he ran towards the rebel army trying to attract their attention. Ning Xuema's gaze fell on Tang Yuan, who was trembling but facing the enemy's back. She sighed. No matter what, she had to save this child first. With a flick of her sleeve, Tang Yuan was sucked back. She held him in her arms and soared into the sky, flying into the distance. Tang Yuan was still in shock in her arms. Coincidentally, Shui Yilan rushed back to the garden. When he saw that Ning Xuema was safe and sound and that she was still holding Tang Yuan in her arms, he finally relaxed. He waved his hand and the countless demon army behind him took down the rebel army. Shui Yilan looked at Ning Xuema carefully and heaved a sigh of relief. He asked, "Momo, do you want to go with me to deal with these rebel army?" Ning Xuema shook her head. "No." Shui Yilan sighed and picked her up. "Then I'll send you back." He casually picked up Tang Yuan, who was jumping on the ground and trying to pounce into Ning Xuema's arms. With a few leaps, he returned to the demon palace. He placed Ning Xuema on the bed and instructed Tang Yuan, "Take good care of her." Tang Yuan nodded his head. "I will definitely take good care of Momo. Don't worry, Your Majesty." After Shui Yilan left, Tang Yuan moved a small stool and sat in front of Ning Xuema. He began to chatter again. Ning Xuema looked at Tang Yuan and her eyes finally softened. Tang Yuan was thirsty after talking for a long time. He poured himself a glass of water and gulped it down. Then he looked at Ning Xuema in a daze. Ning Xuema averted her gaze and looked out of the window. Tang Yuan also looked out of the window. His big eyes lit up and he hugged Ning Xuema's calf. "Momo, let's go watch the show too. Let's see how His Majesty punishes those bad guys." Ning Xuema subconsciously refused, but she could not stand Tang Yuan's pleas. She sighed and finally stood up, taking the initiative to walk out of the room. Inside the meeting hall, Shui Yilan sat high above. Looking down at the kneeling officials, his expression was difficult to discern. All the remaining rebels had their acupoints sealed and were thrown to the ground. Bloodthirsty received the best treatment. He was tied up tightly like a rice dumpling. At the same time, all of his acupoints were sealed, rendering him completely immobile. Bloodthirsty didn't know why Shui Yilan had brought them to the meeting hall. Shouldn't he kill them directly? Soon he got the answer. Shui Yilan played with a jade talisman and said casually, "Demon Emperor Shui Yilan is obsessed with women and doesn't care about the overall situation of the demon world. We should overthrow the old emperor and establish a new one. Is this your reason?" Bloodthirsty and the other demons' faces turned pale, but now that things had come to this, it was better to say it straightforwardly. Therefore, Bloodthirsty stared at Shui Yilan and said viciously, "That's right. You're no longer worthy of being our demon emperor." After Bloodthirsty finished speaking, he waited for Shui Yilan's fatal blow, but after waiting for a long time, nothing happened. Shui Yilan smiled instead. His smile was indescribably gentle and elegant, like an elegant scholar. It was impossible to associate him with the cruel and bloodthirsty demon emperor. Shuilan said lazily, "You're right. I'm indeed not suitable to continue being the demon emperor." Bloodthirsty's eyes widened and he choked, not knowing how to react. Chapter 1336. The demon ministers were shocked at first, then they suddenly knelt down. "Your Majesty, please be careful with your words." Shuilan looked at the demon ministers kneeling down and revealed a cynical smile. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly looked at the door, then slowly stood up and walked down step by step. Bloodthirsty looked at Shuilan walking towards him with an unfathomable smile. His body stiffened and his face turned pale. Was Shuilan finally going to deal with him? What kind of torture would it be? He couldn't help but quickly go through the torture of the demon world in his mind, and his body trembled slightly. He was getting closer, even closer. The closer he got, the stronger the pressure on Shuilan. Bloodthirsty felt Shuilan's oppressive aura getting closer and closer. His face turned pale and his heart beat wildly. He closed his eyes and waited for the torture to come. The oppressive aura was getting stronger and stronger. In the end, Shuilan walked past him without even looking at him and walked towards the door. Bloodthirsty, the demons? Bloodthirsty turned around fiercely, wanting to see what Shuilan was going to do. When he turned around, he was first dazzled by the sunlight outside. Then, a peerless beauty in a bright red dress slowly walked out of the halo. Words could no longer describe her beauty. Her eyebrows were exquisite, and her skin was like jade. However, there was a touch of indifference on her face, as if nothing could affect her. It was Ning Xuema. She was the vase girl that caused the emperor to miss the morning assembly. Shuilan held Ning Xuema's hand and smiled. "Momo, why are you here?" Ning Xuema lowered her head and glanced at Tang Yuan. This little guy who had never seen the world rolled his eyes. He suddenly saw so many important people, and his little face turned red with excitement. He desperately tugged at the corner of Ning Xuema's skirt, looking eager to go in. Ning Xuema glanced at the scene in the hall and said indifferently, "Tang Yuan wants to come and take a look." Shuilan looked down at the pink and white doll. For the first time, he felt that this little fellow wasn't too much of an eyesore. Shuilan held Ning Xuema's hand and walked into the hall. "Momo, come." Ning Xuema let her hold her hand and slowly walked towards the main hall. Both of them were dressed in red. One of them was elegant and affectionate, while the other had an exquisite and indifferent appearance. When they stood together, they were an indescribable match. Before anyone could react, Shuilan had already placed Ning Xuema in his previous seat. Looking at the dumbstruck expressions of the demon race below, he curled his lips and revealed a meaningful smile. "This seat is most suitable for her." After saying that, he casually bowed to Ning Xuema. "Is that so? My Lord Demon Emperor." Ning Xuema was speechless. She glanced at Shuilan and didn't say anything. The demon race's ministers reacted as if they had been thrown into boiling water. For a moment they were all agitated and furious. Another loyal minister suddenly stood up and knelt down heavily. "Lord Demon Emperor, please reconsider." Shuilan raised his eyebrows. "No one can stop what I have decided. She's just a pretty vase. How can she be worthy of being our Demon Emperor? Your Majesty, I don't agree. Your Majesty, please don't be blinded by beauty. Do something that will shock the world. She only has a beautiful shell, but she's sick and needs people to protect her wherever she goes. How can such a good-for-nothing be worthy of being our Demon Emperor? Ridiculous. Too ridiculous. Your Majesty, please reconsider." Below, another group of people knelt down. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Chapter 1337. Everyone's face was filled with disbelief, anger, and many other emotions. They all looked at Ning Xuema with disdain and disdain. Their demon realm was currently in troubled times. They should have worked hard and united as one. They should have a shrewd and powerful demon emperor to lead them to make a comeback. How could they let a good-for-nothing woman be their honorable demon emperor? If this spread out, it would be a joke in the three realms. No, absolutely not. A highly respected minister in the demon realm kowtowed until his head was bleeding. His voice was full of sorrow. "Your Majesty, this old minister thinks that this woman is a scourge. This minister boldly requests your Majesty to consider the overall situation and get rid of this evildoer. Kill her. Kill her. Get rid of the evildoer for the people. Kill the evildoer. Kill the evildoer." For a moment the crowd was indignant. Because of this woman, their demon emperor was dispirited. Because of this woman, Their demon emperor did not think about improving himself and did not consider the overall situation of the demon realm. Every day, he only thought about pleasing her and did many things that they thought were inconceivable. Ning Xuema indifferently swept a glance at the group of people who wanted nothing more than to pounce on her and tear her apart. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. She did not expect that when she came to the demon realm she would be treated as Baosi Sudaji and the like. Hee. Shui Yilan listened silently at first. His handsome face did not have a trace of emotion. When the following people finished speaking, he slowly stood up and walked to the highly respected minister. There seemed to be a hint of a smile in his tone. You don't agree? The minister trembled violently under his pressure, but he still firmly said, This minister does not agree. Shui Yilan's hand clenched in the air and the minister instantly exploded. Not even his bones were left behind. He was shattered into thousands of pieces. The smell of blood instantly filled the hall. The shadow of death shrouded everyone's head. Shui Yilan walked to the second person. The smile on his face was still faint, as if what he had just crushed was just a watermelon. He looked down at the person condescendingly. What about you? Do you agree? The second person's body trembled violently. He couldn't even speak a complete sentence. He looked at Shui Yilan as if he was looking at a devil. This subject. He repeated the word subject for a long time but couldn't say a single word. Shui Yilan's smile gradually disappeared. With a clench of his hand, the second person went to accompany the first person. Shui Yilan smiled faintly as he looked at the pool of blood where the man had been standing. You're just too long-winded? He slowly walked up to the third person. The third person was so scared that he was trembling like a sieve. Before Shui Yilan could ask him anything, he shouted, This subject agrees. We will obey the orders of the demon emperor. Shui Yilan smiled with satisfaction and said lightly, Get up. That minister stood up, trembling. With this person taking the lead, countless people trembled as they stood up and echoed. This subject also agrees. This subject will follow the orders of the demon emperor. Only then did Shui Yilan leisurely walk back to the main hall and sat at the side. Bloodthirsty looked at the sudden change in the situation. He could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He was going to die anyway. Before he died, he might as well curse to his heart's content. Shui Yilan, do you think this kind of violent suppression will be effective? You can shut our mouths, but can you shut the mouths of the people of the demon world? Aren't you afraid that the demon world that you worked so hard to gather will be disloyal? Chapter 1338. Aren't you afraid that the demons will be disheartened and become a pile of loose sand again? You're really blind. You actually want to push a beautiful vase up to be the demon emperor? Is she worthy? We demons have always respected martial strength. The strongest person is the demon emperor. I'm not as good as others. I admit defeat to you, but I refuse to accept it. The entire demon realm refuses to accept it. She can't even compare to my weakest soldier. What right does she have to be our demon emperor? Does she have 2 big legs to serve you well? The last sentence was simply unbearable. Shui Yilan's eyes darkened. Just as he was about to raise his hand to pinch Bloodthirsty to death, he inadvertently raised his head and suddenly paused. Although the people in the hall didn't dare to say anything, their expressions were extremely indignant. They looked at Ning Xuema with eyes full of disdain and hatred, as if they were looking at an enemy. Shui Yilan's heart sank. Indeed, Bloodthirsty was telling the truth. He couldn't rely on violence to suppress everyone. He could suppress them for a while, but he couldn't suppress them forever. Like this, even if he pushed Ning Xuema up, other people would only treat her as a cover and wouldn't take her seriously. In the future there would be no end to the chaos. Who knows, maybe when the council disbanded, a large portion of the devils would find an opportunity to leave. The popularity that he had painstakingly regained would once again be in disarray. Unless Ning Xuema made a move, Shui Yilan couldn't help but glance at Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema didn't have any intention of replying. Her gaze fell on Tang Yuan. Her expression was indifferent and cold. No one could tell what she was thinking. However, looking at her current appearance, she really didn't have any intention of making a move. In the past, she was proud and couldn't be looked down upon. If anyone really offended her, she would definitely make them pay 10 times or 100 times the price. But now she didn't seem to care about anything. Other than indifference, there was only indifference in her eyes. Shui Yilan felt that his head had swelled up. Shui Yilan didn't say anything. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Everyone in the hall thought that Shui Yilan had nothing to say. They became even angrier and felt that Ning Xuema was an eyesore. Finally, a person with ulterior motives stood up and bowed respectfully. Our demon realm has always respected martial strength. This new demon king must be even more powerful. Why don't you show us some of your skills so that we can be convinced? Shui Yilan raised his eyes and looked at that person with a gaze as cold as ice. That person's remaining words were instantly frozen. As Bloodthirsty saw someone answer his question, he became more stirred up. He shouted, "Yeah, if she has the ability, let her show us her power. Why are you cowering there? What right does a slut who only relies on her face and thighs to win the favor of men have to be our demon king? If you really have the ability, then show it to everyone. Don't talk about defeating others. If she can defeat this general beside me, I can reluctantly respect you as the demon king." Bloodthirsty pointed at the devil beside him. Everyone's gaze followed him. When they saw that it was the most incompetent devil among their generals, the whole hall burst into laughter. Ning Xuema's gaze lightly swept over and saw that the person was only Earth Stage Level 1. She didn't know how he became a general. That devil general saw Ning Xuema's gaze sweep over and puffed out his chest. No matter how incompetent he was, defeating a weak beauty was very easy. But when Shui Yilan's gaze swept over, he immediately became terrified. He knelt on the ground and didn't even dare to breathe. Chapter 1339. Ning Xuemo yawned lazily, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She had no interest in this demon world emperor at all. She didn't want to walk the same path as Shui Yimo. Shui Yilan gave her such a big surprise, without her consent. She would let him clean up this mess himself. She stretched again. She was sleepy again. These demons' impassioned words were nothing to her. She didn't listen to them at all and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. If it wasn't for Tang Yuan desperately dragging her here, she wouldn't have come. Seeing that Ning Xuema didn't move, Bloodthirsty thought that Ning Xuema was a piece of trash. He mocked her without holding back. What? You can't beat this? Then do you still deserve to be a demon emperor? Ning Xuema glanced at him, her eyes as cold as snow. Bloodthirsty actually felt a murderous aura. However, this murderous aura disappeared in an instant, making him think that it was just his imagination. He continued to provoke Ning Xuema, but Ning Xuema didn't even look at him. She obviously treated him like a barking dog. On the other hand, Shui Yilan's eyes darkened, and his murderous aura became more and more obvious. He looked at Ning Xuema again, but Ning Xuema didn't even look at him. Her pretty face was expressionless as if she didn't care. It was obvious that she thought he was meddlesome. Tang Yuan couldn't listen anymore. He ran in front of Bloodthirsty and pointed at his nose. "Our Momo is very powerful. Who do you think you are to talk about her? Momo is as beautiful as a flower, her strength is off the charts, and her intelligence is outstanding. With a wave of her hand she can sweep away millions of troops. You're ugly and stupid. Your skills are inferior and your mouth is full of shit." Ning Xuema, Shui Yilan, Little Tang Yuan's last sentence seemed to rhyme quite well. Bloodthirsty slowly lifted his eyes, looking at the little kid who wasn't even as tall as him when he was kneeling. A vicious gleam flashed in his eyes. Little Rice Dumpling was shocked by the hostility in his eyes and instinctively wanted to take a step back, but it was too late. Bloodthirsty suddenly laughed. The special rope on his body was broken into many pieces. He jumped up and grabbed Tang Yuan in front of him. Tang Yuan screeched. Bloodthirsty's fingers had pierced into his back and lifted him up single-handedly. "Demonis, if you voluntarily scram, obediently serve men, and no longer attempt to encroach on the Demon Emperor's position, and release all of our brothers, I will let this brat go. If you don't agree, I will tear him apart." It turned out that the reason why Bloodthirsty had stalled for so long was to give him enough time to break his acupoints. Now that he had finally regained his freedom, he naturally wouldn't let go of any chance to escape. Shui Yilan had set up countless barriers around the meeting hall. Even if he regained his freedom, he wouldn't be able to escape by himself. He could only take a hostage first. Naturally, he wanted to capture Ning Xuema the most, but Shui Yilan was sitting next to her, vaguely looking like he was protecting her. With Bloodthirsty's abilities, he probably wouldn't be able to capture Ning Xuema. Instead, he would be sent flying by Shui Yilan's palm. Furthermore, this little demoness who looked like a pink dumpling wasn't very strong, and it seemed like that woman liked him a lot. More importantly, he was right next to him. He was a hostage that had delivered himself to his doorstep. He would take him first. He was a demon. Naturally, he wouldn't go easy on him just because he was a child. His 5 long nails pierced into Little Rice Dumpling's back, and blood instantly flowed down. Little Rice Dumpling's face instantly turned pale. He opened his mouth to cry, but he couldn't make a sound. Chapter 1340. Bloodthirsty's 5 fingers were like bayonets as he held Little Rice Ball. He was about to threaten him again when a long red shadow suddenly shot toward him. Before he could react, he felt the weight in his hand lighten, and Little Glutinous Dumpling suddenly disappeared. He raised his head in shock and saw that Ning Xuema was still sitting there. She had just retracted the red ribbon in her hand when Little Rice Ball was lying on her knees. His body was still trembling from the pain and he could barely make a sound as he cried. Ning Xuema's 10 fingers tapped Little Rice Ball's back a few times as if she was playing a pipa. Then she took out some ointment from somewhere and applied it on his wounds. Her series of actions were like moving clouds and flowing water without any pause. In the blink of an eye, Little Rice Ball's bleeding had been stopped and he looked even more like a round rice ball. All the demons were speechless. Bloodthirsty was speechless. He had never thought that this seemingly weak woman would be able to snatch someone from his hands in one move. Furthermore, she had done it while he was on guard. How was that possible? Although he wasn't on guard against her, he was on guard against Shui Yilan, who was sitting next to her. This woman wasn't ordinary at all. Ning Xuema put Little Rice Ball down and slowly stood up. Then she walked toward Bloodthirsty. At this moment she was no longer as lazy as a sleeping beauty. Her eyes were dark, but there was a cold glint in the depths of her eyes. The invisible pressure around her shocked everyone present. Bloodthirsty was shocked by her aura and couldn't help but take a step back. However, he was also a ruthless person. Although he was shocked, he still managed to keep his composure. He raised his head and laughed. I didn't think that you would know some flowery moves. You're not just a coward. How about this? If you want to be the Spirit Demon King and you want everyone to respect you, you have to show your true abilities and fight a few rounds with my brothers. If you win against my 4 brothers, we'll respect you and never rebel. How about that? He was still very scheming. Now that he had no hostages in his hands, with Shui Yilan's ability, he would be able to quickly subdue him. When that time came, he and his brothers would have no way to survive. What he said was a dignified challenge to Ning Xuema. As long as Ning Xuema accepted the challenge, no matter who won or lost, he and his brothers would have a chance to survive. Furthermore, he had acted like a man in front of all the devils. If he could regain some of his reputation, it could be considered as killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Ning Xuema walked until she was 2 meters away from him. She was clearly shorter than Bloodthirsty, but when she looked at him, it was as if she was looking down on him like a king. She slowly spat out 3 words, I accept your challenge. Bloodthirsty's eyes lit up. Alright, then I'll send one of my brothers to warm up with your excellency. Shui Wan, you go. Train our new emperor well? Shui Wan was the incompetent general just now. Good. You let me go first. I'll compete in this round. Shui Wan clamored. Ning Xuema indifferently glanced at him and froze him there. Her eyes swept over the leaders of Bloodthirsty and her lips curled up. Her voice was as indifferent as before, but the words she said were incomparably domineering. No need. You 5 come together. If you can beat me, I'll let you do whatever you want. Shui Yilan looked at Ning Xuema, who had released her aura, and his eyes flashed with brilliance. His Momo was finally back. The group of devils looked at each other in dismay. This woman had such a big tone. She wasn't afraid of the wind twisting her tongue. Chapter 1341. If it weren't for Shui Yilan sitting above, the demons would have burst into laughter. Everyone inwardly mocked Ning Xuema for overestimating her capabilities. Bloodthirsty was the second most powerful person in the demon realm, second only to Shui Yilan. He was an Earth rank level 9, a very powerful existence. The reason why he was called Bloodthirsty was because he loved to kill. The number of people he had killed was countless, and his methods were even more cruel and terrifying. Ning Xuema was such a weak vase that she couldn't even stand a gust of wind. Who knew how she would be destroyed in his hands? What's more, the 4 brothers who rebelled with him this time were also very powerful. One was Earth rank level 8, one was Earth rank level 7, one was Earth rank level 6, and the weakest was Earth rank level 5. These 5 people were all extremely cruel devils. Their hands were stained with who knew how much blood they had. 2 of them were even magic weapons used by mothers to scare crying children. Any one of these 5 people was enough to make Ning Xuema drink a pot of water. She wanted to fight against 5 of them alone. Did she think that this was a game between children? Bloodthirsty couldn't help but laugh. You have guts? He glanced at Shuilan who was sitting next to him. However, if you can't beat them, will you find help? He was most afraid of Shuilan. I won't. Ning Xuema answered succinctly. This girl's tone was so arrogant. Could it be that she really had some skills? Bloodthirsty's eyes were like hooks, sizing up Ning Xuema for a while. If you lose, we can do whatever we want to you. What if we lose? What do you need us to do? Ning Xuema's voice was indifferent and cold. I don't need you. So easy to talk to. Why? I never need dead people to do anything. Bloodthirsty. In other words, Ning Xuema didn't plan to take them as her subordinates. If they lost, there was only one word, death. Bloodthirsty's eyes turned red. He took a deep breath and unsealed the acupuncture points of his 4 subordinates. Then the 5 of them stood in 5 different directions. Bloodthirsty's voice was as cold as the winter. If you've chosen this, then don't blame us for being impolite. They would beat this woman into a rag. Then he threw it at Shuilan's face. The group of demons also became excited and automatically opened up a space for them to fight. Bloodthirsty was still worried. His eyes fell on Shuilan. You? What do you want to say? Do you have any objections? He was still worried that Shuilan would go back on his word and help Ning Xuema. Shuilan's eyes darkened. He only said one sentence. Since you're courting death, I have nothing to say. Hearing him, Bloodthirsty and the others thought that Shuilan was talking about Ning Xuema. They couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that their great monster king didn't love this woman as much as he loved her. Thus, Bloodthirsty and the others didn't have any more worries. The 2 sides finally started to fight. 20 moves. Only 20 moves. After 20 moves, Bloodthirsty fell heavily on the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. He couldn't even say a word. He could only gasp like a broken bellows. Blood was spurting out from his acupuncture points. This was especially true for his back. His spine had been forcefully severed, and he lay there like a boneless fish, unable to get up again. The other 4 who had fallen before him weren't in a better situation. 2 of them were dead and the other 2 were dying. They were struggling at death's door. Their lives were in danger. The demon warriors were stunned. Chapter 1342. There were many experts among these people, but none of them could see how Ning Xuema did it. Her movements were like a ghost, and her moves were clean and efficient. Moreover, her moves were ruthless, no less than any of the demons here. Her martial arts might not be as good as Shuilan's, but it was much better than anyone else's. Silence. It was so quiet that even the sound of a needle dropping could be heard. In this unprecedented silence, Ning Xuema's lips curled up. She looked down at Bloodthirsty, who was still breathing as if she was looking at a lowly ant. She said indifferently, "You've lost. Do you want to blow yourself up or do you want someone to send you on your way?" Bloodthirsty choked on his breath. He closed his eyes, knowing that he had no way to live. To die a more manly death, he chose to blow himself up. When he blew himself up, the blood mist splashed everywhere. Ning Xuema took a step back. She waved her hand and a barrier appeared in front of her, blocking the blood mist. She didn't let a drop of dirty blood splash on her body. The other 2 who were still breathing also chose to cut their own throats. At this point, the 5 leaders of the rebellion had all died in this battle. The entire hall was filled with the smell of blood. However, this was nothing to the demons who had been licking blood on their blades all year round. They liked to kill. They didn't have good or evil and they didn't have friends. The only thing they respected and obeyed was the strong. Thunderous applause resounded. The demons clapped their hands as hard as they could. They hated that they couldn't clap their hands until they were swollen. Amazing, too amazing. She had only used 20 moves to destroy the 5 great guardians of the demon clan. Who could do this? The demon clan had another expert. There was hope for their revival. Ning Xuema's previous reaction had become deep and reserved in their eyes. She was calm and composed. Only an expert, no, a demon emperor would have this kind of domineering aura. Who else could have this kind of domineering aura? Only her. Only her. She must be the demon emperor. The position of the demon emperor was hers. Ning Xuema stood there calmly. Her red robe fluttered even though there was no wind. Her face was delicate and her expression was cold. Her attacks were as fast as lightning and she was very reserved. Wasn't this what little glutinous dumpling had said earlier? Our demon empress is as beautiful as a flower, her martial prowess is off the charts, and her intelligence is outstanding. So what he said was true. Little glutinous dumpling was also stunned. His mouth was so wide open that a pigeon egg could be stuffed in. After a while he finally reacted and pounced forward. His eyes were filled with admiration. Momo, you're so amazing. Too powerful. He suddenly knelt down and said solemnly, Lord Demon Emperor will reign supreme for thousands of years. Little glutinous dumpling's words were like a signal. Countless people couldn't help but kneel down and prostrate themselves in worship towards Ning Xuema. Their shouts were like a mountain. Lord Demon Emperor will reign supreme for thousands of generations. Lord Demon Emperor will reign supreme for thousands of generations. Waves of shouts rang out like the tide. With Ning Xuema as the center, all the devils kowtowed deeply. Ning Xuema stood among them, exuding the domineering aura of a ruler. Shui Yilan slowly walked down. Something seemed to be surging out of his eyes. He grasped her hand and knelt down on one knee. Momo, you were originally the devil ancestor. In this devil realm, you were originally the only one who reigned supreme. I, Shui Yilan, I am willing to accompany you and protect you for all eternity. Ning Xuema lowered her eyes to look at him. She slowly pulled her hand away and said indifferently, I never said I wanted to be the demon emperor. Shui Yilan was clearly using this method to force her to return to her identity as Shui Yimo. Moreover, he didn't even discuss it with her beforehand. Chapter 1343. Did he think that she was so easy to fool? She was Ning Xuema, not Shui Yimo. He'd better remember this point. Ning Xuema didn't even look back as she turned around and left. Only one hall of demons remained, looking at each other in dismay. Then, everyone turned their attention to Shui Yilan. Shui Yilan's eyes darkened. After a while he smiled. His Momo, compared to her previous life, had a lot more personality in this life. He liked it. He waved his hand, indicating for everyone to disperse. He stood in his original position, lost in thought for a moment, and then walked out with large strides. Ning Xuema went back to sleep. After resting for so many days, the injuries on her body had mostly healed. Perhaps it was because she had already cultivated to Earth rank level 9, but this time, even without Shinjuli's medicine, the injuries on her body healed very quickly. Now, her skin had already returned to its original delicate state. But what about her heart? Shui Yilan felt that he seemed to understand her less and less. Although she used to be expressionless in front of him, he was still able to observe the changes in her mood in the slightest way. But now it was as if she was wearing a mask. He couldn't read the slightest bit of her inner thoughts from her face. For example, in order to make her agree to be the Demon Emperor, he deliberately let people address her as Demon Emperor Your Majesty in the places where she appeared, and kneeled down to salute her. But she never had any reaction. She just walked past those people as if she didn't hear them. Those demons were completely ignored. After a few times, those demons didn't dare to force her, and didn't dare to deliberately address her as Her Majesty. The sky was always dark and the black fog was always floating. Although the palace of the Demon Palace was brightly colored, with golden tiles and red walls, it still gave off a decadent aura in the darkness. Why did you choose such a place to be the demon's habitat? One day Ning Xuema asked this question while she was wandering. Such a gloomy tone, even if one was in a good mood, it would still be affected and bleak, okay? It made people want to go crazy. The demon chi here is dense, it's a suitable hotbed for demon cultivation. They were most comfortable here. In addition, the barrier formed by the devil chi was a bone-corroding poison to the cultivators. Without the power of Earth grade level 6 or above, they could not enter this place. Even if they came, their kung fu would be greatly reduced. It's a great barrier against them. Shui Yilan explained. Ning Xuema grunted and didn't say anything else. However, her heart sank slightly. After she came here, although she was disgusted by the gloomy atmosphere, she did not feel uncomfortable or uncomfortable. On the contrary, her martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds recently. She must be a devil now, right? It turned out that the devil world was her final destination. She had once longed for the light, but the light had never been fated with her. In the previous life, Shui Yimo was the demon ancestor, and the original Ning Xuema was a secret agent who couldn't see the light of day. In this life, Ning Xuema was badly battered in the world of light, and in the end she was beaten back into the darkness. It turned out that the darkness was her final destination. Momo, are you not feeling well? Shui Yilan grasped her hand and looked at her complexion. Her complexion had been pale. No. Ning Xuema replied with 2 words, let's go. She didn't withdraw her hand. The two people walked side by side. Shui Yilan was somewhat gratified. These days, Ning Xuema had been very homebody, almost staying in the palace and not coming out. Chapter 1344. Occasionally they would go out for a walk in the garden. It was rare for her to be in the mood to tour the entire demon realm, so he would naturally accompany her. The only thing that worried him was that Ning Xuema had made this request too suddenly, and he had casually agreed to it before coming out with her. They hadn't had time to clear the area. Slow down. I'm going to kill you. Just kill me? Aya? A series of ambiguous sounds came from the corner in front of them, and they could vaguely see three white bodies entangled there. This was the road to the main palace, but they didn't expect to see demons performing hot pa-pa-pa on the side of the road, and it was a 3P. Ning Xuema's footsteps paused, and Shui Yilan secretly clenched his fists. He reached out to grab Ning Xuema's hand and said, "Momo, let's go another way." Ning Xuema didn't say anything. She came out to relax, not to watch a 3P. Moreover, she was traumatized by the act of pa-pa-pa, and didn't want to see it again. She turned around and went back with Shui Yilan. What she didn't expect was that the demons in the demon realm were so open, and she actually encountered a 10P on the way back. The 3P just now was a woman and 2 men, and now the 10P was 8 women and 2 men. The 8 women were kneeling in a circle, and the 2 men were surrounding them. The scene was so filthy that it made people want to poke their eyes out. Bastards. There were such scenes in front of and behind them, and Shui Yilan was furious. Couldn't they just take a stroll? Couldn't this group of bastards restrain themselves a little? If they wanted to have fun, they should have gone into the house. Why did they have to do it in the grass on both sides of the road? Get up, all of you. Shui Yilan shouted, successfully startling those wild mandarin ducks who were messing around. The few of them were unhappy that their fun was interrupted, but the one who came out to stop them was their demon emperor, so they naturally didn't dare to get angry. Fortunately, they put on their clothes very quickly, and after getting dressed they all ran over to greet him. Shui Yilan felt that he had lost a lot of face. He only said one word, "Scram." Thus the group of demons dispersed. Before they left, they gave Shui Yilan a puzzled look. They didn't understand why he was so angry today. Wasn't it just fun when everyone was bored? Didn't he usually not care? Momo, let's go back. You take a rest first, I'll accompany you to walk around later. He had to clear the place properly. Ning Xuema's eyes were pitch black, making it impossible to see her emotions. She shook her head. If you're tired, you can go back first. I'll stroll around a bit more. What she wanted to see was the original state of the demon world, not something that had been arranged by someone else. Shui Yilan didn't understand what she was thinking, but he couldn't leave her alone. Although he complained in his heart, he still decided to accompany her. Momo, I'm afraid that you'll be tired. Okay, let's continue to walk around. The two of them walked forward again. In order to avoid the previous embarrassment, Shui Yilan deliberately slowed down a step. Then he took out a pure black voice-transmitting talisman and was about to call one of his confidants over to ask him to send someone to clear the place in front. Ning Xuema suddenly appeared beside him and asked, "What are you doing?" Shui Yilan was shocked. Ning Xuema came and went so suddenly that he didn't even notice that she was beside him. Ning Xuema raised her hand and took away the voice-transmitting talisman that he had just connected. She casually cut off the call and said lightly, "You don't have to be so deliberate." Then she walked forward. It seemed that she wanted to see the real devil world. Shui Yilan felt a headache coming on. Chapter 1345. Before Shui Yimo met Shui Yilan in her previous life, she was almost always sealed away by the demon ancestor in a special place in the demon palace to cultivate. She rarely saw the real scenery of the demon world. Later, when she became the successor of the demon ancestor, she had more time to cultivate and less time to play. In order to create a sense of mystery, the demon ancestor almost didn't let her have too much contact with the other demons. Later, when Shui Yilan came to her side, he took care of everything for her. He cleared away those messy things early on and didn't let her see them at all. Therefore, although Shui Yimo grew up in the demon world, she still didn't know much about the real demon world. But in this life, Ning Xuema's memories of her previous life had been artificially modified by Shui Yilan. Many things were removed, added, and deleted. They were no longer the original memories of Shui Yimo. The demons of the demon world had always been so casual. They had all kinds of ways to find fun. Many of them were unimaginable, but they were also where their fun lay. After he rebuilt the demon world, he gathered the demons with great difficulty. Naturally, he couldn't forbid them from having fun. Occasionally, in order to make them do things to their heart's content, he even used this as a reward. He subconsciously didn't want Ning Xuema to see these dark things, but now they were directly presented in front of her eyes. What would her reaction be after seeing these? Shui Lan was apprehensive. He felt that this walk was the most stressful one he had ever walked. Demons acted without restraint. Along the way, the two scared away a few pairs of wild lovebirds. They even saw a pair of abusers. The one being abused was a human girl, and the one abusing her was a demon general. When they saw it, the human girl's whole body was already so bruised that it was impossible to see. She only had one last breath left. After the demon general saw Shui Yilan and Shui Yilan, he didn't feel ashamed. He casually slapped the human girl to death, put on his robe and saluted the two. He probably hadn't obtained true satisfaction. After saluting, his eyes couldn't help but stare at Ning Xuema. The undisguised lust in his eyes could not be concealed. Shui Yilan was infuriated. Just as he was about to teach this demon general a lesson, Ning Xuema beside him suddenly flashed. Ah! A miserable shriek tore through the night sky. The demon general's eyes were pierced by a sharp object. Blood flowed out and he was in so much pain that he almost rolled on the ground. Ning Xuema casually threw away the branch in her hand and said indifferently, "I don't think you should live in this world anymore." She didn't even look at the blind devil general and continued to walk forward. The devil general did not expect to receive such a cruel punishment. In his shock and anger, he forgot about his seniority. He raised his hand and a large rock on the ground flew into his hand. He then waved it forcefully. "What are you pretending to be serious about?" His kung fu was pretty good. Even if he was blind, he could still determine Ning Xuema's location. The huge rock whizzed towards Ning Xuema. Shui Yilan's expression changed. With a wave of his sleeve, the huge rock suddenly turned around and slammed into the demon general's face. This time, not only did the demon general lose his eyes, his entire face was gone as well. He became a pile of meat paste on the spot. Not far away, the other demon generals who had just rushed over could not help but be stunned. 7 or 8 pairs of eyes looked at Shui Yilan. Shui Yilan's voice was as cold as ice. "If anyone dares to disrespect Miss Ning again, they will end up like this person." All the demon generals. Chapter 1346. Originally it was just a stroll to relieve boredom, but because of this small episode, it became somewhat heavy. Ning Xuema continued to move forward, but she was even more silent. Shui Yilan was also somewhat dispirited. He was afraid that Ning Xuema would see something even more unbearable, so he suggested to go back. This time Ning Xuema did not object. The two people had just turned around when they heard the faint cry of a child in front of them. The cry was mournful and startling. "Mother, I want to find Mother." Wo. Ning Xuema's body stiffened. This child's cry was quite similar to Hong Ti's. Her figure rose and flew forward. Shui Yilan was unable to hold her back. His expression changed and he could only follow. 8 devil generals were currently sitting around 2 large tables, drinking wine and eating meat. Their wine was actually normal wine, but the dishes, after Ning Xuema saw the dishes clearly, her stomach immediately churned. Hearts. Still beating hearts, steamed beauties, and several white and chubby children were lying dead on the side. The most shocking thing was the dish in the middle of the table. A child's head was shaved and imprisoned in the round hole in the middle of the table, twitching. His skull was already delicious. "It's really too delicious." All the devils praised. After eating 2 mouthfuls, they seemed to feel that the atmosphere was not right. They suddenly turned around and saw Shui Yilan and Shui Yilan standing not far away. After staring blankly for a moment, they immediately stepped forward and saluted. One of the devil generals invited Shui Yilan. "Your Majesty Demon Emperor, do you want to taste this? The goods we got this time are very good. The taste is also better than last time." Shui Yilan simply wanted to cover the devil general's mouth. He could not help but look at Ning Xuema beside him. Ning Xuema's face was deathly pale. She tightly pursed her lips and did not say anything. She just fiercely waved her sleeve, and a sharp wind directly attacked the dying child, giving him a release. All the demon generals were stunned, and one of them was more dazed. We can't kill him. It's better to eat him alive." "Shut up!" Shui Yilan shouted, successfully making the devil general choke. Ning Xuema had already turned around and left quickly, leaving behind Shui Yilan, who had lost his composure. A moment later he hurriedly followed. Momo, they've suffered countless losses from humans, so they're venting their anger on humans. Think about it, don't humans treat other species the same way? I'll eat the monkey's brain alive, cook the duck's feet alive, pour the donkey's meat alive. They had already returned to Ning Xuema's sleeping quarters. Shui Yilan saw that Ning Xuema's face was too pale, so he couldn't help but share this knowledge with her. Get out. Let me be alone. Ning Xuema spoke more this time, but it was to drive him away. Shui Yilan's expression darkened, and he sighed. Momo, don't worry, I won't let you see this again in the future. He would clear the places she would pass in advance. Ning Xuema's response was to slam the door shut. The door almost hit Shui Yilan's nose. Ning Xuema slowly sat down on the chair and closed her eyes slightly. Although she was betrayed by Xinjiuli, hated him to the bone, and even had thoughts of becoming a demon, she had been living for many years. A human's thinking was deeply ingrained, and it wasn't so easy to destroy. Her concept of good and evil was still there, but after seeing the life of a real demon, she had a feeling that her three views were about to collapse. She closed the door in the hall and thought for a night. The next day she finally opened the door. Shui Yilan, who had been anxious for a night, was guarding outside the door. When he saw her open the door, he immediately stepped forward. Momo? Chapter 1347. Ning Xuema's eyes were dark, and the expression on her face was cold as if she had let go of something. Shui Yilan, do you really want me to stay in the demon world? Do you really want me to be the demon emperor? Shui Yilan was stunned, but he nodded without hesitation. That's right. Momo, you're the demon ancestor, and the demon world is your home base. Shui Yilan, I don't care what Shui Yimo was like in the previous life, but in this life, I'm Ning Xuema. Not anyone else, you better remember this. Ning Xuema's eyes shone like cold stars. Shui Yilan agreed. I don't care how Shui Yimo stayed in the demon world in the previous life, but I have my own set of rules. If I want to be the demon emperor, I have to change some of the rules of the demon world. Ning Xuema put forward her own conditions. Shui Yilan's heart jumped. Since he rebuilt the demon world, all the rules were the same as before, and he never thought of changing them. He built the demon world for Shui Yimo's return, so if she wants to change them, then change them. She had been lifeless for so long, and it was rare to see her pull herself together again. Shui Yilan simply replied with a word. Ning Xuema's gaze turned to Shui Yilan, and her eyes were slightly complicated. Shui Yilan was really good to her regardless of the cost. He knew that her reform would probably be a big change of blood for the demon world, and the pressure he would have to bear would be very, very big. Shui Yilan was extremely intelligent, and he should have understood this point long ago. However, he still said okay without hesitation, as long as she nodded, whether it was climbing a mountain of blades or diving into a sea of fire, he could charge in without frowning, on the heavenly sound peak. The setting sun melted the gold, and the rosy clouds burned continuously. Another day had passed. Yelu Jing, and stood on the peak, anxiously looking at the snow-white pagoda floating in the sea of clouds. How long will Master be in seclusion? Does he know that the outside world has already undergone earth-shaking changes? There are many urgent matters that need to be reported to him. Yelu Jing, and didn't know what happened between Xinjiuli and Ning Xuema. He only knew that the atmosphere between his junior sister and master was a bit strange, because he, as a junior, couldn't casually ask about his master's affairs, so he didn't ask about things he shouldn't know. 16 days ago, the little Qilin brought a fire phoenix to seek shelter in a hurry, as if there was a ghost chasing after it. Masters, and although the little devilses, its little s's didn't kill little to us to him. After all, masterses, and to use her masters you master Yelu Jing, and also knew that Kirin was very favored, and could freely enter and leave Heavenly Sound Peak, so he first asked for his master's permission. Xinjiuli only said one word, permitted. Thus he sent the two up and they didn't come down again. He didn't know if they'd seen his junior sister or not. After that, Xinjiuli transmitted a message to him, telling him not to let anyone step into Heavenly Sound Peak for 3 days. He also ordered him to prepare the festive wedding items. He only had 3 words for these items: the best. He didn't know what his master was planning, but he still prepared everything according to his master's orders. He was just waiting for his master's order to decorate the wedding hall. Chapter 1348. However, he hadn't expected that 3 days later, Shinjoli would enter seclusion, and his junior sister's whereabouts were still unknown. While he was confused, a disciple at the foot of the mountain who had been paying attention to the demon world sent a shocking piece of news. His junior sister, Ning Shuema, had gone to the demon world and was now with Shuilan, Yelu Jing, and was the kind of person who wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. He had experienced many storms in his life, but this news still shocked him and made him unable to recover for a long time. As he sent people to continue investigating the demon world, he used the special voice transmission talisman to contact his master. However, Shinjoli didn't seem to have any intention of picking up. He tried for 3 days but there was still no news from his master. Yelu Jing steeled his heart and went up the mountain to take a look. He arrived outside the White Tower where Shinjoli was cultivating in seclusion, but he didn't dare to disturb him. This was because Shinjoli had previously instructed that no one was allowed to disturb him when he was cultivating in seclusion in the White Tower unless he took the initiative to contact someone. While Yelu Jing was pacing around outside, a woman's clothes fluttered up not far away. It was Fairy Yunshi, who had been visiting the Sun-Moon sect frequently recently. Fairy Yunshi's expression was somewhat solemn. After hearing about Shinjoli's situation from Yelu Jing, she took a deep breath and said loudly to the White Tower, "Dizun, Yunshi has an important matter to discuss with you." She shouted 3 times in a row, and the White Tower's doors finally opened slowly on both sides. Shinjoli walked out slowly, stepping on the sea of clouds in the void and arriving at the mountain peak. He didn't wear a mask this time, but there wasn't much expression on his face. Yelu Jing vaguely felt that his master's aura seemed to have become much colder. He hurriedly went forward to greet him. Shinjoli only nodded slightly at him, indicating for him to stand up. Then he glanced at Yunshi. "What's the matter?" Yunshi glanced at Yelu Jing. Yelu Jing was a tactful person, so he immediately tried to think of a way to avoid this. Unexpectedly, before he could say anything, Shinjoli said, "There's no harm in speaking." The meaning was naturally that Yelu Jing was not allowed to evade. Therefore Yelu Jing stayed put and acted as a third wheel. There was a flash of sadness in Yunshi's eyes. However, she was here to bring some breaking news to Shinjoli, so she didn't care about the details. She took a deep breath and finally revealed the explosive news. "Dizun, Yunshi just found out that the demon realm has a new demon monarch. It is said that it is Lady Ning." After she finished speaking, she couldn't help but stare at Shinjoli, expecting to see shock and anger on his face. However, she was finally disappointed. Shinjoli's eyes only darkened slightly, but his face was still as calm as water. He replied her with a single word, "Oh." Yunshi was speechless. She felt as if she had used all her strength to throw a punch, yet she had ended up punching a ball of clouds. This wasn't an ordinary feeling of emptiness. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but she couldn't find the words. "Is there anything else?" Shinjoli's voice was as calm as water. "No. Nothing else." "Oh, that's right. Dizun, my injuries have completely healed." She fluttered in a circle. Shinjoli nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. Then he said something that made Yunshi's pretty face turn pale. "Since there's nothing else, you can leave, Jing, and see the guest out." Chapter 1349. Yunshi was speechless. She coughed and turned to ask Yelu Jing, casually, "Jing, what's going on with your junior sister? Why is she associating with demons?" Yelu Jing smiled and bowed. "Jing doesn't know. Very please." Yunshi choked. She'd originally wanted to get some information out of Yelu Jing but she hadn't expected her to be so tight-lipped. She asked a few more questions and Yelu Jing answered politely. However, every word was just a formality, and she didn't reveal any gossip. Yunshi had no choice but to leave. She just turned around when Yelu Jing suddenly thought of something. "Oh right, I forgot something. Some of your things are still with me. I'm returning them now. Fairy, please check and see if you've missed anything. My master said that there can't be the slightest oversight." He took out some miscellaneous items from his storage bag. They were all things Yunshi had used when she was recuperating, such as an ivory comb, a water chestnut mirror, a powder box, a crystal hairpin. Yunshi's face turned green and white. She forced a smile, put away those things and turned around to leave. Yelu Jing bowed and sent her off. Her etiquette was extremely thorough, but her eyes flashed with disdain as she watched her leave. It was said that this fairy had been seriously injured while helping her master retrieve something. Her master had made an exception and allowed her to stay at Tianyin Peak. He'd even built a small building for her and instructed Yelu Jing, and to send 2 female disciples to take care of her daily needs. When her master was at the peak, this fairy looked so weak that she could faint at any moment. When her master wasn't at the peak, she liked to wander around. She'd even gone to the side hall where her junior sister lived and bought a bed of the same style. Later, her master had healed her arm and ordered her to leave. She'd left behind a pile of things in that small building. She hadn't taken any of her daily necessities with her. It was obvious that she wanted to come back and live there again. Her feelings for her master were clearly displayed on her face, so Yelu Jing and couldn't ignore it. A few days ago, when Shinjioli had Yelu Jing and prepare the wedding items, Yelu Jing and was still muttering in her heart, thinking that her master, this 1,000-year-old iron tree, was finally going to bloom, but she didn't know who he wanted to marry. She thought about all the women her master knew who were slightly closer to her and thought that Fairy Yunxi had finally been chosen. Looking at it now, that was obviously not the case. Then who did master prepare it for? Could it be, it was little junior sister? Yelu Jing, and slapped this thought back to her mind and turned to go to the main hall where her master lived. What do you have to report? Just say it. This was the first thing Shinjioli said when he saw Yelu Jing and didn't dare to be long-winded, only reporting everything one by one. For example, there had been strange movements in the Devil Realm recently. People often went missing in several cities near the Devil Realm, and most of them were children. The Sun Moon sect and a few other sects had joined forces to set up surveillance in those cities and caught 2 demons. From them, they learned that the Devil Realm and the Demon Realm had joined forces, and their master was the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor turned out to be Shui Yilan, and there seemed to be some changes recently. He was going to give up his position to a woman by his side, and that woman's name was Ning Xuema, Yelu Jing, and secretly checked her master's expression as she reported. Shinjioli's eyelashes were lowered, and no expression could be seen. He only said, "Continue." Chapter 1350. Yelu Jing, and clenched her teeth. The other sects are furious, and there are already several sect masters who have sent people to the Sun Moon sect to demand an explanation. Master, is that girl really junior sister? So what if she is, and so what if she isn't? Shinjioli's tone was cold. Yelu Jing and was moved. Is she really junior sister? Junior sister is definitely not a demon. She went to the demon world. Did master send her to be a spy? Shinjioli didn't answer and slowly got up. Pass down my verbal order. Ning Xuema is no longer my disciple. From today onwards, I will sever my master-disciple relationship with her. Yelu Jing and turned pale with fright and knelt down. Master, you want to expel her from the sect? Shinjioli asked back, did I say I would expel her from the sect? Yelu Jing and seemed to have fallen into a fog. Then master's meaning is? It's the literal meaning, go. Shinjioli ordered her to leave. Yelu Jing and could only bid farewell and leave, walking while comprehending the venerable emperor's spirit. After thinking for a while, she suddenly understood. Master's meaning was that Ning Xuema was no longer the venerable emperor's disciple, but she was still a disciple of the Sun Moon sect. It seemed that junior sister was indeed a spy sent by master to the demon world, but it was inconvenient for master to say it. However, master's verbal order had to be spread throughout the world, or else it would be very unsafe for junior sister to be a spy there, and it would be easy for her to be criticized by the people of the demon world. Once this verbal order was spread, junior sister's position in the demon world would be stable. But the other sects wouldn't let her go, and when the time came, there would be a rain of blood. It seemed that he still had to make arrangements to secretly send people to protect junior sister's safety, and not let others bully her. Otherwise he, Yelu Jing, and would lose face. How should this verbal order be passed down so that the other sects wouldn't dare to act rashly? Yelu Jing and understood the venerable emperor's spirit, and began to ponder the most important question. As expected of someone who had led the Sun Moon sect for many years, he wasn't an ordinary deep-fried dough stick. After thinking for a long time, he finally thought of something. His eyes lit up, and he hurriedly went down to pass on the ancestor's instructions. Shinjioli stayed in the side chamber where Ning Xuema was for a full 6 hours. After 6 hours he came out and summoned Yi Li Jing, and again. He said faintly, clean up this side chamber. Don't leave anything behind. He turned and left. Yelu Jing and stared blankly. The ancestor's order was the same as what he'd said to Yunshi back then. Clean up everything in the building. Now that Yunshi's small building had been demolished by the ancestor, could this side hall be demolished as well? In that case, where would junior marshal sister Shuema stay after she returned? Yalu Jing, and walked around the side chamber and found that the things here were truly lacking. She couldn't help but sigh. When Ning Shuema went missing for 10 years, everyone thought that she had been completely killed. They were afraid that their master would think of her when he returned, so they followed Wu Mo's instructions and cleaned up everything that belonged to Ning Shuema. Later, when Ning Shuema returned, because she came and went in a hurry, she didn't leave many things in this side chamber. There were only toiletries, a few sets of clothes, a few beaded flowers and a few pieces of jewelry. Now all these things were left alone, giving people a sense of desolation for no reason. Yalu Jing, and tidied up all these things and placed them in a suitable place. He was prepared to return them to Ning Shuema when she returned victorious. In order to eliminate the wariness of the Devil Realm's demons towards Junior Marshal Sister, Master really put in a lot of effort. However, what would Junior Marshal Sister's reaction be when she heard that Master had severed their master-disciple relationship? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.